turn the heat down before we get started?
Yes, ma'am.
Whoever does that.
Mr. Mayor, do you have the key? Or is it locked? The thermostat, they won't turn the heat down.
Play the county a little bit.
It's warm.
I wouldn't say anything.
What about that one right there? Will it do anything?
Everything. Watch out.
She's all inspired.
You know, I can say in the future us handling it.
I don't know if it's the right thing, but something happened.
Everybody's going to turn it off again. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Secretary, call the roll.
Katie Huffaker.
Here.
Todd Jefferson.
Here.
Steve Douglas.
Here.
David Galt.
Here.
Randy Baxley.
Here.
Rita Music.
Here.
Donnie Tabor.
Here.
John McGraw.
Here.
Russell Turner.
Here.
Tim Seals.
Here.
Sammy Solomon.
Here.
Robert Blevins.
Here.
Gene Esslinger.
Here.
Randy Bales.
Here.
John Neal Scarlett.
Here.
Terry Dockery.
Terry Dockery will be absent.
Robert Tucker.
Here.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Here.
David Seal.
Here.
Bob Beeler.
Here.
Barbara Sheets.
Miss Barbara is still recuperating from a broken hip, I do believe, and she'll be returning shortly. Would everybody please stand for prayer led by Mr. Donnie Tabor?
I've got 2 copies.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for your blessings, too many for us to measure, Father, and we just praise you for that, Lord Jesus. Father, at this season of Thanksgiving, we want to give you thanks. Give you thanks for our county. We give you thanks for the people of this county, Father. And we pray that, Lord Jesus, as we look at the business of the people of this county, Lord Jesus, we can do it in such a way that will bring you honor and bring you glory, Lord Jesus. And Father, help us to seek your wisdom and seek your grace in all that we do. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
Would you please join us for the pledge? Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. First on the agenda is approval and corrections of the agenda. And tonight the Beer Board will not meet. It has been postponed till January. Anyone else? Question or comment? Moving right along to the approval of the minutes. Before you have the minutes. Mr. Tucker.
Move to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Turner. Anyone opposed? So moved. We have before you the appearance of citizens. We have 7. Did anybody fill out a paper that I do not have? First appearance of citizen is Hunter Donahue. You have 3 minutes. Come to the podium, sir.
Howdy, I'm Hunter Donahue. I'm a current senior at Jefferson County High School, and spent the last 2 years in a new program at the high school. It's a CT program, but it's for engineering. We've been confined to a computer lab basically for the past 2 years because this building fell down. We've had this program, and the class I'm taking now, we're supposed to be in workshop kind of deal going in through, and we do what we can in our classroom. We've managed to, through our TSA Club, Technology Association, which we started last year also, we built a robot. We've gone to a competition with TSA. But everything, we've been confined to a computer lab classroom. Not much room to work, not much room to store anything. This year we've managed to get ourselves a 3D printer, thanks to CTV help with Mr. Cable. But it would help a whole lot for us to be able to go into a Building 8 kind of workshop setting and be able to get hands-on, be able to work. I know for classes like automotive, shop, search core, they're having to bus themselves up to the bus garage. I'm estimating that takes probably a 15-20 minute chunk out of their class time, just having to bus themselves up there, getting organized. and it limits the time that they can spend doing what they want to do. Given that they're on the CT program path, they're going through there so they can get an education to get tech school, getting a job. Not everybody wanting to go to college. Not everybody can go to college. And Building 8 really helps that group of people, which we have a lot of people at Jefferson High School. They're on the CT path, they're on the tech path. They're wanting to go out in the world after high school, but either go to tech school or go straight into a hands-on job. Just we need people like that in the county. Not everybody goes to college, and everybody needs to go to college. Nobody can go to college. Building 8's just where it goes, and since it's been condemned, falling down, all this trouble, it's just really been hard on them. It's been a strain on them, and been a strain on everybody. I know right now most shop classes are stuck out in the portals behind the high school, and it's not the greatest place to be. It's where our engineering classes are. We've been stuck there starting this semester, and it is what it is, but we will deal with it. I just want to thank you for your time and just thank for the students.
And thank you, sir. Next, we have Kyle Wood. Sir, you have 3 minutes.
My name is, like you said, Kyle Wood. I'm a senior at Jefferson County High School and the current president of our Technology Student Association. And I was just here to speak generally to the benefits of having the Building 8 CTE department, like Hunter said. In only 1 year with Technology Student Association, we have, like he said, built a robot. We took it to state, made it to semifinals. I've been part of a team that developed a navigation device for the blind. We're currently considering pursuing a patent on that device. And, you know, I know a sophomore whose aspirations are to develop the first street legal solar powered vehicle, hovercraft, I believe. So we have a lot of incredibly intelligent, engineering-focused students at the high school, and having the facilities that are in the plans for Building 8 would give them the workshop that they need to kind of further their goals. A lot of the jobs that are going to be open in the next 20 years or so are going to be entirely technology-based. So giving the students kind of the facilities to work in technology, work on that field, that will give them a lot more success in college to have that experience going in, kind of prepare them for engineering lab classes, science lab classes, and honestly, I feel like it's really necessary. There are a lot of schools in the area that have similar things that are putting out a ton of engineers, such as Hardin Valley, Oak Ridge. I feel like this Building 8 plan would be kind of the first step in getting Jefferson County on that path. And I'd like to thank you for your time, and that is all.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Ramona Pettigo. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Ramona Pettigo. I'm a teacher at the high school. I deal with a lot of the students that are there, and I've heard from them the frustrations they have with the fact that Building 8 is in the situation it's in. The students have had to be bused, like they said, to the other shop, the bus shop, where their facilities are much smaller. They don't have the materials that they need to do the projects that they need to do so that they can be competitive in going out to a technology school or in the job market. And I just feel like that to delay and wait on more bids or wait on more time and more plans would just be a disservice to these students. They are looking at now. They're wanting to get their program going now so that they can have a future for tomorrow. And delaying any further would just prevent that from happening for them. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Next is Vivian Romines. You have 3.
Hello, my name is Vivian Romines. I'm a current senior at Jefferson County High School. I've been in automotive class since my freshman year, and starting this year, we've been bused to and back from our bus garage. And since Building 8, the building is in its condition now, we've been confined to a fourth of a building, of the bus garage. That is really inconvenient for us because I'm in 4th period in automotive. There's 2 classes that go up there sometimes just 1 class. And 2 classes in a fourth of a building is really inconvenient. We don't have as much room as we can or we should have. And a lot of our standards aren't met that we're supposed to be met. Like our car lift is at Building 8, our tire rotators at Building 8. We're not able to learn that. We can't learn that to what we're supposed to. And I would really like Building 8 to be finished so we could have our whole area that we're supposed to have. And that's it. Thank you.
And thank you. Next we have Logan Smith.
Hello, my name is Logan Smith. I'm a current senior at JCCM High School. I'm a current leader in Link staff, which we work with the freshmen to transition into high school better. And a lot of the freshmen that I'm noticing, they're really saddened by the fact that we do not have a Building 8. Without a Building 8, most of them cannot go down the path they need to go down. Like they've done said, most of our incoming students don't want to go to college. They can't go to college. They want to go into the technical path. Without Building 8, we do not have the opportunity they deserve to go into a job field they would like to go into. As a county, as a school system, we need to provide this opportunity for our students. If you guys take this away from our students, what's going to make us want to come back here and live in this county? What's going to make us want to have our kids in this county and go through this school system? And myself, I'm into technical paths, but I've never been in Building 8. I'm a digital design is what I'm going into. And it hasn't affected me that much, but I'm with students all day long that is affected 100% by this. And without you guys voting yes tonight to go forth with Building 8, you are hurting this county, you are hurting every student that goes through this high school. The environments that we have been in since I've been into high school is unacceptable from a student's point of view. Yes, they are getting better. Yes, you guys are doing some of the right stuff. But if you vote no on Building 8 tonight, you are making a horrible decision. And this is my personal belief, and this is the belief of 90% of the JCHS students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next we have Rocky Riley. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm Rocky Riley. I'm a employee of Knox County Schools, career and technical education. I'm a curriculum supervisor. I'm here on behalf of John Cagle and the entire CTE department across the state of Tennessee. I'm a state STEM leadership council member appointed by the State Department of Education, and I'm a community member here. I live down at 830 Workman Road in Newmarket. You just heard the prime reason why I'm here. Every one of these young men and women here, that's the reason why we're in the people business. You all got elected to be in the people business. We got into education because of the people. To educate our kids, to make sure that they get the proper education in what they need to know. And with what we're going through as a country and as the United States in general and the state of Tennessee with a drive to 55, these programs in Building 8, not just them, but anything that we're doing, it impacts our students day in and day out. I think it's a reminder that we are in the people business. I think that this is a great thing. I think we can get all the money and all the, I'm going to say it, the bickering and everything else that happens on the tail end. We got to do what's right for kids because we're in the people business. And that's why I'm here. It's not because of my situation or John. We're equals. We're on the same page. I just do it in Knox County. So I appreciate your time. Please take into consideration what these young adults are going through because that's what they're doing. It's hard for them because we're asking them to go out and get jobs, and that young man said it best. We want him to come back and buy into our county. We want him to rejuvenate Jefferson County. We want more jobs here. We want more small business here. Why should they invest at the time when they come when you're not doing it now? And I know that we are, but I'm just generalizing everything. So please take this in very hard consideration and understand that this is where we need to be as a county, and let's move forward and take care of our own people for a change. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And last is Mr. John Keg.
I'm glad I got to go last, Mr. Chairman, just because I needed a couple of moments to compose myself. You got to see why I've got the best job in the county. I work with the best students, the best faculty, every single day. I'm honored to be here in front of you and see so many of you on this county commission who have come through Building 8, come through our programs. I like to brag that Building 8 has produced more state champions and more national qualifiers than any other athletic group at the high school. That's a fact. No, Mr. Scarlett was a national finalist in FFA a couple of years ago. We had a national winner this year in FFA, Miss Lindsay Rutherford. I know what a tough task y'all have. I really empathize with the task that you have dealing with what seems like unlimited wants and needs with very limited resources. But I've made the comment privately and I'll make it publicly. And I may get left out of the county, but I thank God every day that the roof did collapse at Building 8, because for too many years, kids who were in vocational classes were seen as second-class citizens. Their needs were always put off until everything else was taken care of. I think the roof collapsing, in my humble opinion, and I'm not speaking as a school employee, I'm talking as John Cagle down living off Smoky View Drive. I think it was God's way of making us look at the needs of those students out there. I think when he caused it to happen without kids and faculty in that building, gave us an opportunity to really put it back at the forefront. You've seen exactly why we need to get it done. I know y'all know that in your hearts. I'm not going to give you a hard sell. But please don't wait on Building 8. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Question or comment? If none, we'll move right along to approval of notaries and bonds. Mr. Kesterson, I'm sorry. Sure.
Something. I just wanted to ask, out of all those people that got up and spoke, have any of y'all gone to the school board and said the same things? Because this board, this commission, has been adamant about getting something done on Building 8 since probably August or September of last year. It's not the holdup. It's all of a sudden it's now became urgent, whereas it hasn't been urgent for months. And I know that you're probably getting pressure put on you by certain people to come here and speak, because I saw the email. So it's not this commission that's holding things up. I just wanted that for a piece of information.
Thank you, Mr. Kesterson. Mr. Tucker.
I'd like to thank Hunter Donahue and Kyle Wood and Virginia Romines and Logan Smith. Three of those four I've known for a long time, and I applaud you for having the courage to get up here and to speak. And I understand the passion in your heart for seeing things move forward. I was on the steering committee of Vols for STEM, which started off in STEM programs several years ago and started that push. My heart's there. I think there's been a little bit of misinformation, and Commissioner Kesterson just touched on a little bit of it. One thing that Mr. Cagle said that I couldn't agree with more is that Building 8 needed repair, and it's always needed it. When the roof was up, Building 8 needed repair. And when the school board came with their plan, we said, why is Building 8 not getting repaired? And they said, we're just not going to do it right now. And I remember several commissioners, not just myself, saying that has to be a priority. Those kids have been neglected, and they've had to deal with the worst, and it's time. In this $52 million we're using to upgrade our schools, why can't we do anything with Building 8? Nothing needs done with Building 8 is what the school board said back. So I think there's a little bit of misinformation. That was back in the last commission's go around. We tried to get them to do something. So then in July 6th of 2013, there was a collapse. And the commissioners were amazed, and it was in our forefront, and we knew that we had to address something and had to do it now. And in our August meeting, I remember Commissioner Scarlett saying, it's got to be done now. And throughout that semester, nothing happened. And throughout the next semester, nothing happened. And in May, I remember word coming from this commission telling the school board, we want to see Building 8 completed before the students return in August. And the reply we got back was, nothing can happen to Building 8 until every renovation is complete throughout the rest of the school. Nothing can happen. And that's what we were told. And we pushed again in August. Building 8 needs repaired. You've got kids over there, you're busing them, you're shipping them. It's got to happen. It's an inconvenience. It can't happen yet, we were told. And only recently, when some attorney stumbled across something in the insurance clause that, hey, you know what, there's a drop dead day. If it's not done within 2 years, insurance isn't paying. Finally, a fire got lit under the school side. And they've come to us and said, it's emergency, it's emergency, it's emergency. And I so appreciate all of you coming and saying how important this is, because it's important. It's important to every one of us on County Commission that it's done. And it's done now. They've had 18 months to this point. And now what we're saying is, we've been pushing you for 18 months, and what we want is to see another bid, take another 2 weeks and see a bid, so that if it saves $500,000, because I report to the taxpayers of the county. And the taxpayers of this county definitely want to see those CTE students have a proper place to learn, to be educated, to move on with their careers. They want to see that. And they want to see it done in a frugal manner. We have a fiduciary responsibility as commissioners to look out for the taxpayers and ensure that there's not waste. And so by us saying, let us see another bid, that's all that I think we're saying. And I think there's misinformation, like you all think we're not ready to build it, or we've not been saying, get it done for the past 18 months. That's what we've been saying. So I'm glad that they've come on board now too, and they're ready to get it done as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Mr. John McGraw.
I'm a new commissioner, and I realized for you 4 seniors, when I came to this particular situation where I was going to run and be elected by District 4, that schools would be a major part of what I had to be a part of. I started comparing my degrees with one of the full professors at Carson Newman yesterday. I got more degrees than a thermometer. I'm really into education in a big way. I was a chief flight surgeon at Meridian Air National Guard for 5 years. I walked through Building 8. Dr. Edmonds, Mr. Cagle took us on a tour. My mouth started getting open and more open and more open. And when I finished, because my job was the environmental, occupational protection of all the people on my base as the chief flight surgeon, I was so shocked by the safety problems. And for you seniors, you think education is the #1 priority, but safety even trumps that. And your teachers all said that. They're not dumb people. They all are great, great teachers. So for me, I've been at the last 3 regular scheduled school boards. Okay? I've even got a better record than some of the school board members at being at them. And Lord willing, I'll be there Thursday night, because I'm trying to understand the situation, because I want Building 8 worse than I want the Fine Arts Center, which I'm an avocational musician. I'm tickled to death about it. I've spent thousands of hours on the football field, including Jefferson County. I love athletics. Building 8, in my opinion, I agree with you, John Cagle, is absolute priority. But it has come down to where it's us versus them, or we don't want Building 8 funded or something. I don't know where you've gotten this information. I don't know of a single person on this 21-member commission that doesn't want Building 8 done and done correctly, okay? But I have learned something in the last 3 months, and that's a whole lot of legal ramifications that we cannot just jump and say, make it happen. Hey, if it's raising the money, I'll take a tin cup and I'll go to the 417 exit and I'll stand out there with you. I'll do it, and you know I will. Because I believe in you students, and I believe in the education. I believe you're the future of this county. You have to realize we're not magic, and we can't make everything exactly happen. This is a dance. It's a dance with good people on the school board. We've elected 7 wonderful people. Mr. Jarnigan is the chair, and I respect him and all the school board people. But this is a thing to make sure that we get it right, so that when we finish the project, we forgot to put the cake and only got icing. Okay? So please be patient with us. Don't think of us badly for doing the job that the voters of this county elected us to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McGraw. Mr. Steve Douglas.
I'm not sure I can add anything to what anybody said here other than this. I'm a product of Building 8, albeit a long time ago, and I remember seeing Commissioner Scarlett down in Building 8, as well as our chairman, Mr. Carmichael. And to think that I don't understand or get the problems that we're having right now in that school is a misunderstanding also. My daughter graduated last year. She was bused for agriculture to the off-site. So I understand the problems here. And yes, I want Building 8 fixed because of all people. I understand how good or how necessary vocational education is. So.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Mr. David Goff.
I'll be very quick. We've heard a lot about what we're depriving the children of, but what are we saddling these students of when we continue to incur all this debt? These people, if they do choose to come back to this county, you guys are the ones who are paying for it. And if you look at some of our schedules, it's going on to, what are we up to, 2040 right now? Somewhere around there. So we're trying to take all that in and do it in a fiscally responsible way.
Thank you, Mr. Galt. Is there anyone else? Mr. Scarlett and then Miss Rita Music.
She can go ahead.
Miss Rita, the floor is yours.
I'd like to say, I know it's going to cost money. I don't have a lot of money. I pay my taxes like everybody. I worked at a college for 27 years. Every child in our county is not college material. We have our technology kids. They're the ones that make everything that you use every day out here to work with. We need to build Building 8. We've stuck on it too long. It needs to be done now.
Thank you, Miss Music. Mr. Scarlett, you have the floor.
I said last time that and I want to make this clear, because the email that Mr. Kesterson referenced had some mistruths in it. And if one of the truths is that one commissioner particularly said if Rettenbach is doing it, he won't vote for it. If that was me, that is a lie. Because what I said was I didn't trust their numbers. I did not feel comfortable with their oversight. And that I wanted competitive bidding. And I don't see why that would be an issue. But I'm like Miss John, it's not a us versus them issue. I want Building 8 fixed like I want my next breath. I wanted that from the beginning. I was the one that when it collapsed said, when are we getting it done? I was the one that said, let's fix the building, let's get some bids, and we'll sue the insurance company when we get time. I made that statement multiple times here. And I guess in the email, what really does irritate me is, one, apparently the author chose not to call and get the facts straight. But the other thing is, where was this outrage a month after it failed, 2 months after it failed? I didn't hear any outrage then. The email also states that there's kids that won't graduate this year because of that. I wonder if it only became a problem this year, Mr. Cagle, as opposed to last year, because we've already seen a set of kids go through, and that's dang unhandy to have them out there and not have shop space. They should be just as well as the other kids. And it's been historically in this county, 70+% of the kids walk off the end of the stage. And it may have changed, and I don't know exactly the figures, but when I was on the school board, 72 to 75%, the 4 years I was on the school board, when they walked across the stage, that's it. They didn't go to technical school, they didn't go to vocational school, they didn't go to anything. They went in the workforce or on whatever. About 80-some%, am I right, Mr. Cagle? This year we'll have a CTE class at Jefferson County High School. We're talking about the majority, not the minority in that school. And I applaud anything about and I hope my kids have the availability to get the AP courses, do all they can with what we can afford. But we're talking about the majority of the kids that walk through the halls of that school need and desire vocational courses. And like I say, I started in on this thing a year ago this last August. We're just now getting there. So we got run down the chute as this commission on some Obama money that we'd been much better off had we just went out and got the money ourselves instead of having to abide by all the terms and conditions. And I think Mr. Helton has told me they've changed the rules once or twice already on what we got from them. So we got run down the chute on that thing. And I know not everybody handles cattle, but I do. You can get them stampeded on anything, and they'll tear up a gate and a fence and create terrible mischief and havoc. But my grandmother used to come out and say that she didn't know why we always had time to do it over, but we never had time to do it right the first time. So on this thing, I would drastically like to see us curtail our emotions and accusations, get the facts right, and let's get this done. Because like I say, I want that building done, but as Mr. Tucker said, I report to the taxpayers also. And in the taxpayers in the 7th district, if they ask me, or if any other district taxpayer comes up and asks me, do you know for sure that that's a good number, Dr. Edmonds? I can't tell them that because I don't have the confidence that you may have, but I don't. So from my standpoint, competitive bidding on the thing, we've still got time, we've still got plenty of things, and we don't have the money, and I want you all to understand as students, if we could get back to being broke, we'd be good. Right now, we're insolvent. Being broke says that you don't owe anybody, but you don't have any money. Our problem is we owe money and still don't have any money. So we're going to have to go to the taxpayers and say, for whatever we do on this thing, we're going to have to say to them, we need you to understand this is what we need. For the kids in the county, for the good of the county, we need you to give us this much more of your money. We need to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scarlett. Mr. Bob Baylor, you have the floor.
I think everybody in the room agrees with what everybody's saying, that Building 8 needs to be fixed and needs to be fixed now. But where our problem is, that is where we put this out for bid again. Now, in my opinion, the school board is elected officials, the same as we are. They've got a job to do. and same as we have. By us questioning them, that is their job to make sure that to put out the bids and take the bids in, and that's what they're there for. They've made their decision. And I can understand, and I've been to all the school board meetings, I go to them all the time. And they, not once have I ever seen them not let somebody talk. If anybody on this commission had anything against not wanting the bids that was turned in, if they thought there was bids out there somewhere else, they should have came, go to the school board meeting and make their opinion known to them. You don't wait till after it's over and then the school board's made the decision and then turn around and said, oh no, I don't agree with that. If you had any if this county commission had any disbeliefs or anything about it, we should have went to the school board and said, hey, we need to rebid, not rebid it, but we got a problem with Rittenbach. And I'm sure they would listen and consider it. But after they've made their decision, that's what they're elected for. After they've made their decision, then I don't see no reason why we should go in there and try to change it. And I'd like to read something here to you. Now this is going back to the school board meeting February the 9th, 2006. This comes from the school board minutes. Upon a motion by John Neal Scarlett and second by Michael Fagan, the board unanimously voted to retain Rittenbach Construction Incorporated as the construction manager based on the lowest cost. So Mr. Scarlett is the one that put them in, and now he's not satisfied with them. That's all I got to say.
Ms. Rita, do you have a comment?
The thing is, I'd like to say, it's like every time Mr. Beeler's speaking or anybody else that probably knows what they're talking about, the I's are crossing between Mr. Scarlett and some of the other commissioners. It does not need to happen that way. That's making fun of people. I don't know how the people in the audience feel, but this crossing eyes, and John Neal can say that he was looking at you and you was looking at him and you were grinning when Mr. Beeler was talking. Guy and Scarlett were talking and laughing last week at Mr. Beeler when he was making a comment. We're not stupid on this board. And this little petty stuff that kids do in school, looking at each other now, we're not here to look at each other and say, this is the way I'm going, you're going this way.
Now, Ms. Rita, order. Now, I don't think I have seen, I'm talking now, Ms. Rita, thank you. I don't believe that there's been anybody mocking anybody, and I don't believe there's anything out of order. Ms. Rita, don't try me. Mr. Turner, you have the floor.
I'd just first like to make a point of order that if we just follow our rules and keep the indecorous comments to ourselves and be professional, look forward, don't look at each other when we're talking, because we're not supposed to directly engage each other. We're supposed to speak to issues, and we're supposed to, if we're talking about something that was proposed by someone next to you, it's supposed to be something that was presented by the previous commissioner speaking, not names and pointing and that sort of thing. So if we just follow our rules, and I'd appreciate, Chairman, if you would enforce that, that would be my point of order, but I also would like to make a statement.
Sure.
I've been here also, and I've seen the misinformation, and I'm not going to talk to that because I don't think that's why we're here. My problem with where we are right now is that it seems like when it comes to the school, we're continuing this process of confrontation between the school system and the county commission. I would just it just seems like every time we get to the point of making a decision that's going to be for the good, it's a good thing that's about to happen, someone finds a way to throw up a roadblock. Now, you can take that as a positive roadblock or a negative roadblock, but it's a process of delay. And I'm not interested in any delay. And I would agree that we've learned a lot from taking federal dollars. I know that I'm not interested in taking any more federal dollars after that process, but that's beyond us. That's under the bridge. There's nothing we can do about that. We did the best we could do under the circumstances. And I was a part of the commission that approved the current $50 million project. And there were many bids that were proposed, and I don't remember times when we jumped out on a $50 million process or bidding process and asked for rebidding on those. So that for us to throw up a roadblock and throw this out there to get more bids at this point on a total $2.7 million that would need to be funded, it just blows my mind, I guess. And I'm really not interested at all in any process that delays us at this point. We've used Rentenbach for 3 consecutive projects since 2005, and if we're not interested in them in the future, or any other contractor or subcontractor, I think we should move forward in that manner and talk about that going forward. But to try to short-circuit what's going on, I feel like it does a disservice to the students that are standing before us here. It potentially puts the kids out of Building 8 another school year, and that would be, if we cause it by asking for more bids, then we need to be prepared to take responsibility for another school year with them not in those classes, and I'm not going to be a part of it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Donnie Tabor, then Mr. Scarlett.
I've listened to everybody go back and forth here. I've not heard anybody say that they're against renovating Building 8. I'm certainly not either. I've always been a supporter of the schools. I've been a facilities manager at a local hospital for 30 years. To not get competitive bidding is just bad business, okay? It's just bad business. And I think that's what most people would like to see, is that we go back to the taxpayers and say, we got the best price we could, you know? And that's what I think most people are asking for, and it seems reasonable to me.
Thank you, Mr. Tabor. Ms. Katie.
I'd just like to say what other people have said up here. I think everyone, the intent is good. Everyone wants to see Building 8 fixed, but there's a risk associated with it. So do we wait and risk losing the $200,000 insurance money? Do we send it out for bid with the risk or the gain of maybe you get a lower price? And I'm torn between the decision because I don't know the right answer, because it's a risk either way. But I just hope people are respectful to the commissioners, because I think that we are all trying to work together and everyone wants the same end result. It's just, how do you go about getting there? And just remember, no matter how we vote, in my opinion, it's a risk either way, but please, see that everyone's trying to be looking at the best interest and what's best for the county.
Anyone else? Mr. Scarlett, short.
I'd like to, since Mr. Beeler called me out personally, let me address a couple of points. Number one, I was on the school board when Rettenbach was hired. Me and Mr. Fagan helped negotiate the contract. Within that contract, there is a clause that says if anything is saved out of the guaranteed maximum price, they get 25% of it. If they have overpriced this, they get to keep 25% of it. Free and clear, that's what the contract says. Don't know if anybody else in here has read it, but I have. The other thing is that by Mr. Beeler's theory, the school board, once they vote on it, you should have went to them ahead of time. I do not see why he made the motion then in the budget committee to not fund the bonuses of the school board that they sent just the other day.
Thank you, Mr. Scarlett. Anyone else? All right, moving right along. Let's go to approval of notaries and bonds. I think Mr. Harrington has two more he wishes to add.
If there's no objection from commission, I'd like to add Sherry Bledsoe and Sharon Breeden, both employees of the finance department. Due to changes there, they need to be added, be voted on prior to January.
So
Mr. Tucker.
Changes.
I'll second.
Mr. Scarlett, did you make the motion?
So move with changes.
Mr. Tucker, you seconded it. Does anyone oppose? So moved. The two names will be added. We will entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Randy Baxley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tim Seals. Does anyone oppose? Thank you. Moving right along, number 9, election of committees, boards, and commissions. I just happen to be the nominating committee chairman. So before you, first on the agenda is the Agricultural Extension Committee. And on the Agricultural Committee, we have an open position for a commissioner. We have Terry Dockery is returning. We have a farm man that will be nominated. But let's go ahead and do the farm man. Bill Hickman is coming back. And the farm woman Dolores Jackson is coming back. And farm woman Susan Gass is coming back. The nominating committee nominates Randy Bales for the open commissioner seat of Miss Barrero. The nominating committee also nominates Robbie Reese as farm man, replacing Brian Stooksbury. I will now open the floor for nominations. Is there a nomination for it to cease? Mr. Scarlett. So therefore, before you is Randy Bales, Robbie Reese. Does anyone oppose these two people? So moved. Moving on to Animal Control Oversight Board, 2 county commissioners, 1 citizen. The first opening, the nominating committee wants to nominate John McGraw for the commissioner seat of Mr. Dennis Cureton. And second, Commissioner Bob Beeler will be coming back. Ms. Jean Weber Range will be back. Her term does not expire to 2016. And Shirley Hammond doesn't expire to 2015. Ms. Peggy Mitchell is nominated to replace citizen Greta Blevins. I'll now open the floor for any nominations. I hear none. Motion nomination cease. Mr. Randy Baxley. Mr. Randy Bales, second. Therefore, before you is John McGraw replacing Commissioner Cureton and Peggy Mitchell replacing Greta Blevins. Does anyone oppose? Building Inspection Appeals Board. We have 2 terms expired. It'd be licensed realtor Ed Franklin. The nominating committee respectfully renominates, and the citizen Randall Mitchell is renominated. Is there any nominations from the floor? If not, hearing none. Does anyone oppose? So moved. Next, we have the Conservation Board. We have Commissioner Robert Tucker renominated for his position. We have Commissioner Steve Douglas nominated for the Commissioner seat of Jimmy Dale Patterson. And we have Dr. Bill Clampett renominated for his position. I'll now open the floor for nominations from the floor. There is none. Therefore, anyone opposed? Mr. John. Motion to approve. Thank you, sir. Second by Mr. Seals. Anyone opposed? So moved. Next, you have the Facilities Committee. It's 5 county commissioners. The nominating committee nominates Terry Dockery. Donnie Tabor is being replaced by Tim Seals. Commissioner Russell Turner will be renominated. Commissioner Randy Bales will replace Commissioner Griffin. And David Galt is nominated to take the place of myself. I'll now open the floor to nominations. There is none. Motion nomination cease. Mr. Scarlett. Does anyone oppose? If not, so moved. Next, you have the Personnel Committee. The Nominating Committee nominates Commissioner Rob Blevins to be back. You have Commissioner Russell Turner is renominated. Commissioner Jimmy Carmichael will be back. You have Commissioner Bob Baylor and Commissioner Music. I'll open the floor to nominations. Motion to cease. Mr. Randy Bales. Does anyone oppose? Now we're down to the Public Service Committee, which is 5 county commissioners. Commissioner Tim Seals is nominated for the open commissioner seat of Amberero. David Seal is nominated to take the place of Donnie Tabor. Commissioner Terry Dockery was renominated. Commissioner Russell Turner renominated. And Commissioner Jimmy Carmichael was not renominated. Sorry about that. There's a glitch here. Well, I'm sorry. I was right the first time. You have Tim Seals, David Seal, Terry Dockery, Russell Turner, and Jimmy Carmichael. I'll now open the floor to nominations. Motion nomination cease.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Todd Kessler. Does anyone oppose? If not, so moved. That concludes the nominating committee. Now we will move on to reports from elected officials, department heads. Mr. Mayor Alan Paul Murray, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the County Commission, I'll be very brief. I have 3 quick items. First one is I've been contacted by several of the commissioners, some of those commissioners being freshmen, some of them being seniors, talking about the presentation that was made at the last meeting with our representative from Morgan Keegan. To clear things up, hopefully a little bit, Jefferson County at the present time stands $80 million in debt. Now that's the principal amount. There are 2 ways to look at your indebtedness. One is principal only. which is the base, the core that you have to pay, that you owe. The other is what they call P&I, that's principal and interest. To be honest with you, if you want a true account of what your indebtedness is, you need to look at the interest, because if you're borrowing money over a period of time, you're going to have to pay interest on that. If you have a mortgage on your house, you're going to have to pay interest on your mortgage principal that you're paying. If you buy a car on time, you will have to pay interest. If you have credit cards and you have large purchases, you are going to have to pay interest. So automatically, from $80 million in debt, if you add the interest, Jefferson County is approximately $130 million in debt as of today. Now, why do I bring that up? To clear up some things, hopefully, to some of the commissioners that have called me and that I've talked with. It's also to say that at the present time, County Commission is talking about funding different projects, talking about bonds, talking about additional funds for schools, talking about Chamber of Commerce, talking about EDOC, talking about some other projects that are going to come down the pike. What I need to say, or what I would like to say, is that over the years, Jefferson County has fallen behind. We have not kept up with the things that we need to, whether it's the schools or anything else. We're behind times. When we talk about funding, we talk about doing different things. I hope County Commission, who will soon be getting into the budget process, by the way, the budget process will begin in February. That's just right around the corner. That's when things will begin. I hope that wisdom will prevail and you'll say, let's look at what we really have to have and what our needs are, and let's look at present revenue streams and new revenue streams and the taxes that we have. You have to look at it realistically. Unrealistically is what the former commission did with the school building project when they gave the schools $53 million and said, we can do this without raising taxes. That was a hoax. It can't be done. You can't do that. But by the same token, you can do that. It's like you can go to McDonald's and you can have McDonald's hamburgers for breakfast, lunch, and supper. And you can do that for X amount of years, but at some point in time, your heart's going to quit. You can do almost anything you want, but is it the responsible thing? No. If we're going to give away money, and I'm not saying it's for a bad cause, I'm saying we all recognize we need to do something with the schools. If we're going to give money away, let's be responsible with it, and let's be honest with the taxpayers. So number one, there are a lot of needs, hopefully, that you all will look at, and you're also looking at various funding methods, and that your true debt is $80 million plus, principal-wise, but you're about $130 million when you add the interest. Next item I'd like to ask for, as you know, I had stood here before you at the last month's meeting, and there are certain committees that the mayor appoints and county commission confirms. I have an opening on a board, and I'd like to nominate and ask for your confirmation of Chief Lee Turner for the 911 board.
Mr. Mayor's just made his nomination of Lee Turner. Mr. Tucker.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Turner, second. We have a motion and a second. Does anybody oppose this? Mr. Mayor.
Last thing, Mr. Chairman and County Commissioners, I'd like to wish you and your family and your loved ones a very happy Thanksgiving. Hope you have a blessed season, and thank you for the job you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sheriff, do you have anything tonight? Does anyone have a question or comment for the sheriff? Thank you, Mr. Sheriff. Next, we have Finance Director, Mr. Darrell Hilton. I'm sorry, hold up. Mr. Turner.
I thought at the work session I asked Sheriff if you might be prepared to talk to us a little bit about initial expenditures for some placement of officers for some initial security concerns, and how we might be able to help you, knowing that I think that you are incurring some expenditures in doing that.
Yes, as from today forward, I had asked for $17,480 or $458.68 to continue to have security here at the courthouse every day. That would be my price, $17,458.68.
I'd like to refer that to the Budget Committee for consideration.
Is that in the form of a motion, Mr. Turner?
That's correct. I'd like to refer it to the Budget Committee.
Seconded by Mr. Sammy Solomon. Does anyone opposed to this business? So moved. Thank you, Mr. Sheridan. Mr. Darrell Hilton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think first on the agenda now is the resolution that's been presented to you for reimbursing ourselves. I think we discussed that last week, I think at length. So I present that to you for your approval.
Mr. Tucker, then Mr. Douglas.
I move to approve Resolution 2014-34.
Mr. Douglas, is that a second or a question?
That's a question followed by a second, I hope.
Well, we need a second, then we'll do the question. How's that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, sir. Now the question.
Let me understand this correctly. This is like building a house, and we say, okay, we're not sure exactly how much money we're going to have to wind up financing, but we're going to use the money out of our fund now to pay the contractors, subcontractors, and bills we're incurring.
Well, kind of, yes. Basically, remember, all this is you're passing, this does not obligate you in any way other than to give you the ability later on, if you decide to borrow this money that we've been discussing for some time, if you borrow that money later on, we can reimburse ourselves in the accounts that we're going to be taking the money out of. The hospital reserve, debt service, and the school. This is just an action to give you the right to do that. Now, if you don't borrow the money, then it doesn't apply.
Okay, we're dancing around the same pole. I just asked.
I think so.
Okay, I understand.
Anyone else? Mr. Katie.
Okay. Section 4, it says reimbursement will be made, have occurred within 60 days from the date of this resolution. So if we pass this, if for some reason Building 8 is delayed or rebid or for whatever reason, if we go out 2 more months, can we extend the date on this or pass another resolution where we can, where if we exceed the 60 days?
Well, I suppose so. I was thinking that we had in here, I think when Mr. Gibson was here last week, that we had a date in that it was 60 days from completion of the project.
That's correct.
But that's not what this says, though, I'm afraid. It does say 60 days from the date of this resolution.
Yes.
Mr. Tucker.
I'd like to amend Section 4 to include what our financial advisor, Mr. Gibson, had stated last time, that it is 60 days after the completion of the project. So if the project takes 18 months, at the conclusion that you've got 60 days then to have any other expenses come in, and then whatever you borrow can be used to reimburse that.
Correct. That was the intent of the resolution.
Mr. Tucker, do you want to do that as an amendment, or do you want to add that to your motion?
I think I'll have to do it as an amendment to this resolution. So I move that we make that amendment.
Mr. Tim Seals seconded it. We have a motion and a second on the floor. It's open for discussion. Mr. Turner.
My only question would be is if you didn't draft this, right?
Correct, I did not.
Scott Gibson drafted
Yes,
this.
he did.
So, is he correct? Is he correct in the way he has written this? Because we don't know, he's not here to answer up to that, so we're making a correction to his document. He's not here to say he made a mistake in what he stated the last time he was here. So I'm not sure whether we're doing the right thing. I want to do the right thing, that's all I'm saying. So we're correcting him, and he's not here to verify sitting there that that's correct. He made a mistake here.
Well, that's, we could to maybe dot our I's, cross our T's, if you wanted to go back to him and make sure that he agrees with
Well,
this.
I don't feel comfortable making a decision on what I think he thinks.
But, true, I agree. I do know he made that statement last time, but like you said, it's not in the written document when he said that, so. Postponing this on until January, I guess I'm trying to think if there's a time frame on this that we need to get it passed.
Another reason why I question this is it by law that it has to be within 60 days that this is correct.
I think that was his statement that he made last week, so. Whatever is the pleasure of the commission, if you wanted to wait and have him.
Because I think we're strapping ourselves, if we were to end up going into a bit of a delay because this body decides to ask for additional bids or before anything's accepted, and we approve this, I'm just not sure we're going to have the time to do that.
Okay, Mr. Scarlett.
I was just going to
comment.
What I remember him, Mr. Helton, he spoke specifically about that because there was a issue about whether it was the end of one project or another or whatever. There is, I think, a specific time limit based on what he was proposing, but I'm not trying to interpret what he's saying, but I don't know what that limit is.
I agree, and I'm thinking he even said it is by law. I think the law states that it has to be that period of time, is the way I remember him saying it. Well, I have a feeling we may be having a special call meeting. Maybe we want to postpone this until the next meeting, and I can verify it through Mr. Gibson, if you so prefer.
Could we ask our counselor to weigh in on us making a correction like this?
Is this about the bond?
Is about the resolution?
I've probably, it's a broken record. I am not a bond lawyer.
Well,
and there are very few.
It's not about the bond. It's just about the wording in this resolution, and us making a change to his paragraph, section 4 wording, without him being present.
We have a move to postpone. Mr. Scarlett. Mr. Douglas, is that a second?
No, never mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Miss Katie.
Question before I think the motion
Sure.
postponed. Can he call him on the phone and ask him?
No.
I mean, no?
Not tonight.
Okay. Well, I just thought it was urgent. We needed the money. I mean, I
Try
don't know.
It's worth a try. It's worth a try.
I'd like to
I'll withdraw my motion.
You're going to withdraw your motion? Okay, Mr. Douglas, question.
Is postponing this to January not going to present a problem? Because as I understand this, we have payments due. We have to pay contractors out of this money that this resolution is tied to between now and January, do we not?
And we've already paid it. Already paid some.
Okay.
I mean, this month, I had already paid.
That's what I was getting at. We've got to pay the contractors.
Well,
hold on, Mr. Seals.
This won't have anything to do with that. We've got to go ahead and pay the bills. Remember, this resolution will come into effect if you decide to borrow the $5 million. That's really what we're talking about. Remember, when you borrow that,
Miss Katie, finish your
reimburse
question.
ourselves from that.
Can you call him? Can you attempt to call him to let us know? Because I thought we couldn't take the money out of the fund until we pass this resolution. But now you're saying we've already taken money out of it.
No.
So, to pay bills.
Somebody
Out of
wanted to sell.
not to take the money out of the hospital reserves or wherever it's coming from to pay, when in actuality, we might be taking a bond to pay. Can you call and ask him?
I can
Mr.
try.
Tim Seals.
I was just going to ask if he could call.
Well, I tell you what, postpone this, and then I'll try to go out. I left my phone out in the car. Maybe I've got his phone.
Move to table it till later in the meeting.
Won't you do that, then I'll try to.
Okay, I have a move to table.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Keskerson. This will be tabled till later in the meeting. Mr. Helton, next.
Your next one is just for your information, was school resolution declaring surplus equipment from the student nutrition department. And then the next one is in the folder that I gave you. You do have your summary financial reports that are in there. As I always say, please review those, and if you have any questions, please feel free to call.
Mr. Tucker.
Is 2014-19, is it moved to new business, or should we handle that now?
It can be handled right now.
I move to approve resolution 2014-19 to declare equipment surplus to the school board.
Second by Mr. John McGraw.
That's information, though.
It's for information, but he can make a motion if he wanted to.
I was going to say, it's for information.
Yeah, it's for information only, but he can. Mr. Helton?
Mr. Chairman, if I might ask, with Dr. Edmonds' permission, if you're moving on to the next item.
Yes, sir, I am.
I would like to make a statement, and then Dr. Edmonds will come forward and make his report. I had sent you all an email today about some concerns I had about the request for funding Building 8. When this was first developed, I started checking after we had the discussion last week in particular. I started looking into it more. I started looking into this situation even more, and then after checking with the auditors, I determined that I cannot and will not sign any documents or anything that would result in a project with negative funding. And that was what was being presented. As if you'll remember, the action the school board took resulted in us having a negative funding of about $90,000. We can't do that. We can't really sign something saying, hey, we're going to do this, but we won't have enough money to do it. Now, I think there is a solution to this, and I met with Dr. Edmonds and Mr. Fagan today, and we talked about that, as I alluded to in the email that I sent to you. But I think at this time, and maybe I can come back and talk to you a little bit more about this, but I think the issue that Dr. Edmonds is going to discuss with you now is one that maybe needs to be discussed before we go any further on talking about the funding for this project, because the decisions you're going to make here will affect that. So I think those things need to be discussed, and then we can come back to this issue if needed. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Helton.
At this time, I'll turn it back over to Dr. And then, like I said, I can come back up and discuss it as that is needed.
Dr. Edmonds, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the county legislative body. My remarks won't be real long, but I have several things that I need to touch on. First thing I need to do is make official request, and I will read that to you. I did this at the work session, but it needs to be on the record in this meeting.
At a meeting on October 28, 2014, the Board of Education authorized me as Director of Schools to come to the County Commission and request funding in the amount of $2,452,845 for the Building 8 restoration and renovation project, with any insurance recovery to go toward any debt incurred for the work on Building 8 by the county. I hereby am making that request. I do have some comments to make, and before I get into some things about funding and how we have had funding in the past, how we have bids and contracts in the past, I want to make a couple of remarks. First, I want to say anything's been said or done that offended any commissioner about this Building 8 project, I sincerely apologize, whatever it was. Whatever it was to any of you to offend you, I'm sorry, because certainly it's not in my intent nor the school boards that we do anything that would offend you. Because as been stated before, we want a good relationship, and we know we've had problems in the past over funding and things of that nature that was handled in a gentleman's way, but we had misunderstandings and disagreements, but worked through them. So again, I apologize for anything that's been said or done. The first building that I inspected when I came to this county in April of 2010, I came April the 1st, and by May, and I know Mr. Cagle will remember it, I asked for an inspection of the vocational building. And there were several concerns for that. You remember that when we did that? And we walked through the building and checked just about everything out there. And what was appalling to me was the lighting, because that was a very serious safety problem. Because about 60%, at least 60% of the lights were out. Those are the long hanging lights on chains. Well, we were able to go to work. It took a while to do it, to get money. If y'all remember the lighting work we did, we put in between 400 and 500, about 500 lights, wasn't it, Michael? We put in 500 light fixtures in Building 8. And you remember that too, I'm sure, Mr. Seals, you were out there. So that was the building that was on my mind at that time, because when I drove by and first saw it, I thought we need to do some things there. Now, I know it's been a long process, and I know we look back at why there's been delays, and I can explain those as I did one night, but I don't want to dig up old bones tonight on the delay. I'd like to move forward and make some comments. And I certainly understand the commission being concerned that we get our dollar's worth. And I understand that our present construction manager has done a lot of work for the county over the years, and I was going to trace that just a little bit for you. And what we're interested in, at least I think I represent the board in this fully, was we want to get Building 8 done. We want to be able to do it in a fashion where it would be timely enough that we get our insurance recovery if we win our lawsuit. I'm not here tonight blaming you with any of this at all. Certainly not. I guess there's some fault that can go around, but we ran into a lot of hurdles the way this insurance policy is set up, and having to change attorneys to many things we had to do. No excuses. We've taken too long. We need to fix it. I want to talk about the approximate value of work performed on the oversight of Rittenbach constructors as construction managers over the past approximately 7 or 8 years. And some of this was done before I came in April of 2010. Rush Strong School, Danvers Elementary School, Jefferson Elementary School had about $3.5 million worth of work done 7 or 8 years ago. The second major project, and I want to thank the Commission before I go further. And I know there's disagreement way back when we came for funding some 5 years ago, and it was changed. And and things had to be done differently, and they were. But we've been able to work through this and get a lot done. So on the positive side, we were able, even though we had some issues in the way we had to do with the federal money we received, we did work through it, thanks to Mr. Hilton and a lot of work. Mount Horeb School was the next project, and it cost $11 million. That was overseen by Rittenbach.
That school did turn out well, even though we had some issues with some contractors every now and then. We got a good school. In fact, it was selected as the elementary school of the year in Tennessee because of design and the things that went into it and so forth. A lot of that had to do with architect, but some of it had to do with construction manager. The third project that I mentioned is the Freshman Academy for $16 million. That was overseen, has been overseen by our construction manager, Rittenbach. That school was also nominated for School of the Year. We were hoping we would find out today where we placed, because it was being evaluated at the Tennessee School Board Association meeting that the chairman and I attended this last weekend, and some other board members, and we were unable to find out before we left where we placed. But it was nominated, the Freshman Academy, for School of the Year, statewide also. Then we have the Jefferson County High School renovation at $25 million. So what I'm telling you, there's about $55.5 million that's been spent over this last 7 or 8 years. There was, through the auspices of using the Rittenbach as construction manager. Mount Horeb was constructed within budget and on time. The Patriot Academy was constructed within budget, except for that federal nemesis again, the Davis Basic and Wage Act. But for that, we were within budget, and it was open on time. At the present time, we've got Jefferson County High School renovation on a pace to come in under the budget with all the structural repairs structural repairs that we've had to do that were unknown when we started. So we're on a pace. We're not there. We're on a pace to come in under budget, or within budget, and I sure hope we can do that. Then we have Building 8. And the proposal there is another $3.6 million. 2.4 we're asking to be funded and hoping for an insurance recovery. We have had $55.5 million in construction management supervision over the contractors performing for the Board of Education in the last 7 years. We're asking to take $3.6 million more. And whatever the Commission considers, consider that we have already spent $55.5 million under their management. We've only got $3.6 million more. That doesn't mean we don't want to save all we can save. And I respect your right to consider how you'd like to see us save it. I respect that. What we are worried about, and again, not placing blame anywhere, accepting some responsibility, especially for things if we'd have known better, would have done to speed it up, but didn't get good advice, is the only real crunch now is the time in getting the part done on which we are trying to recover insurance money. And we've used that date of July the 6th, July the 6th, 2013 is when it collapsed, and July the 7th, and we must be done by July the 6th, 2015 with a part that collapsed, as well as other things that have to be done to get to what the completion amount the insurance company would accept within the 2-year period. And that's a little ambiguous too, and hard to get an answer from the attorney on that too, because the attorney can't guess what the judge is going to rule as far as extensions. But that brings us to where we are now, and I'll be glad to answer any questions, but Mr. Fagan has put together a report that will track the ways in which you can do construction as a school system, including the construction manager and including the general contractor. Did you have a question for me?
Yes, sir. Do you know exactly what status we have to have that building to in order to comply with the insurance?
I have asked that on the phone and in writing, and not to be critical at all, but it's hard for the, and I read that paragraph again twice today. It's hard to decide from that paragraph
what's the completion would have to be. But based on my discussions with the last discussions I had with our attorney, is we will have to have the collapse portion finished. And we would have to have the part we're claiming insurance money for finished. Anything that we're not claiming insurance money for would not have to be done by then.
The reason I brought the question up, there's a lot of people up here trying to decide what to do with the building, and knowing exactly what status we have to have that building to is part of their decision. And I wanted to bring that up and get it out as clearly as possible.
Good question. Very, very good question, right on point, David, and I appreciate you asking it. And I don't want to be ambiguous at all. I like to just give a straight answer to you. But as far as we can tell, again, the lawyers is trying to guess what will happen with the judge when we get in front of the judge with this. But trying to guess what it really means in the contract, because there's ambiguity in the way it's worded. So it's open to interpretation, and that's where the judge will decide. But we know we'll have to have completed anything that we have sued for, and that is the part that has to be shored up structurally to meet the 2006 International Builders Code.
Does that mean we have to have a certificate of occupancy?
My answer to that, I think, and I stand to be corrected, would be no, because the certificate of occupancy would be when it's ready for students to go in. And in my opinion, that would be November, the date that was set. In other words, there's a projection that we could be done with the entire building, not just the collapse and the shoring up of the perimeter, but the whole renovation could be done by November. And then we would need a certificate of occupancy issued from State Fire Marshal's office to get that. But that is not what the completion is tied to, in my opinion, based on discussions with attorney.
Dr. Edmonds.
Yes, sir.
We're going to have to take a short break to switch the tape. Your next question will come from Mr. David Galt.
All right, sir.
So we're going to stand with a short break of 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Call this meeting back to order. Mr. Edmonds, you still have the floor, and I believe you've got a question for Mr. Galt and John McGraw.
Dr. Edmonds, you talked about staying on budget at Mount Ford. Whose budget was that? Is that written box budget the only number that we got, or did we get competitive pricing on it?
I'm trying to think about the bids on that project. They did go out to bid, though. We had competitive bids.
But we're still dealing with the singular construction manager.
That's how the construction manager approach works. And hire through negotiation the single manager. They competitively bid
Mr. Fagan, I'll need you to take the podium so everyone can hear you, please. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Construction manager approach is considered a professional service, so you don't competitively bid for a construction manager. You go out and negotiate to secure a construction manager, and then on your behalf, they, based on the design provided by the architect, develop bid packages and go out and secure competitive bids through the advertised and open sealed bid process. The subcontractors who actually are subcontracted to them, not the school system.
Okay, so admittedly on your all's part, we've had issues with subcontractors from Mount Ford. Did those same subcontractors continue working for us?
They did not on the Patriot Academy. The subcontractor that we had there for masonry, which was the trade discipline which we had the most difficulties, it went from Brunton Masonry to Painter and Gentry Masonry at the Patriot Academy. At the high school renovation, we ended up with Brunton Masonry again after some, what shall I call them, quality control negotiations, because we were able to secure a better bid to the tune of $500 and something thousand.
And how does, I'm not sure how the process works. I've heard a little bit. It looks like we pay, there's been some talk that Rittenbach's only stands to make 61,000.
67, I stand for
67,000. So is that the only check that they would receive?
No, sir.
So they distribute the funds. Do we have itemized billing and detailed, I mean, whenever they submit a bill for $5 million, do we...
That would be a question for Mr. Helton.
Do we reconcile each one of their subcontractor bills to that $5 million plus their commission? Or do we just pay the $5 million and assume that what they're giving us is subcontractors have billed?
I'm generally not involved in the payment process, so I'll have to defer that to Mr. Helton.
At some point we have I assume we have a very deep trust to Rittenbach at that point. Is that an accurate statement?
There has to be a certain amount of trust in it, yes. For instance, when they submit a bill to me for payment, I examine it and make sure all the documentation is there to support whatever they're doing.
If they give you...
Yes.
Every item, I mean, every amount of money is itemized per a certain contractor.
Yes.
Okay.
But when and that's all I do is I match it up and make sure that those match what the amount that they're requesting. Now, obviously, I don't go through. I don't question. Okay, hey, you paid the concrete man, this month, this amount, or you paid this or that. Now, I don't have the expertise, obviously, to go and see that that's done, but I match up all the invoices to what they're asking to be paid for. Now, in a construction document, what sometimes is a little bit people don't understand is in almost all of them there's a retainage amount that's withheld. That's a certain percentage that is put in an account and is held until the job is completed. That is not released, and that has to be released by me when we feel like the job has been done appropriately. So every time they submit one to me, just about, there's a retainage amount that I pay and deposit into a bank account to do that. So, but I match up all of those as it comes through. Now, their fee is generally just, it's incorporated into their total bills that they send us. But what I work off of, Mr. Cott, is that guaranteed maximum price. I'm looking at that. There's progress reports given to us every time. Okay, we're at 15%, we're at 35% completion, and so forth. And I try to kind of look at that and see, are we in line? Are we kind of where we should be budget-wise? Does that answer your question?
Mr. John McGraw, your question was for Dr. Edmonds?
Yes, Dr. Edmonds.
Yes.
You know how important Building 8 is to me.
Oh, yes.
I can't speak for the rest, but you understand that this is extremely important. I wish we could have been in it yesterday, but Mr. Helton has given us a letter today. Okay? There's two things here. One is, we as commissioners are being asked to either not go with the bid process because it'll hold up the timeline that we actually have to get to on July the 6th. We know the date, but we really don't know exactly what the completion is. So if we ask for an extra month and a half, as you've given us some outlines, Mr. Pate, we might delay that process and lose that insurance money. So, but we might not. You see, and so you're asking an orthopedic surgeon to make a decision based on the fact that I don't have information. See, I really need it, but I'm not going to get it because the attorneys won't give us that information, right? I mean, they just not give us it. So now we have this letter from Mr. Helton, and it says, I have now received confirmation from auditors this would be illegal. Ooh. I'm a doctor, and I listen when Mr. Drennan says illegal.
I got that letter today, too.
Yeah, and so how do you respond to this? Because you have proposed this, that we give y'all $2.452+ million. And so when we're faced with this, can we not, we have to refer this back to y'all, or else we're voting on something that's illegal. Is that right?
I'll let Mr. Heldon answer that question, but obviously the interpretation he got was that you can't sign a contract which is not fully funded. And it's not fully funded. It's essentially here. But if you don't mind, I'd rather he'd talk about the finances, because I don't want to do that.
Well, you don't want us to do something illegal, do you?
No, sir, I sure don't. I really don't. If I might have the liberty of saying one thing to Mr. Galt, too, while we're back to him. Michael, on the high school, I remember we had about 50 bid packages, and we had some 130-something bidders. So these bids have been big, wide open. What I'm trying to say is bid packages mean the concrete, electrical, plumbing. So we'd have as many as 40, 50 bid packages and 100-something bidders.
Just a little bit over 2 per bid package, right?
We got about 2, 3.
It depends on the bid package. We have 5 on some.
Right.
I'll go into that greater detail in a minute.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Mr. Fagan, the floor is now yours.
I'd like to hear Mr. Helton's answer, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on just a second. Mr. Scarlett, you would like to hear?
I'd like to hear Mr. Helton's answer to Mr. McGraw's question.
Mr. Helton, take the podium.
Answer your question, the letter is correct, because we obviously cannot fund or cannot approve a project where there's not appropriate funding for it. Now, maybe to make this as simple as I can, because it is somewhat involved, the way the funding for building aid and high school renovation has developed. If you remember, the $575,000 is actually your problem to a great extent, because that was going to be used. Part of it was going to be for building aid, then it was switched and we were putting it in a high school renovation package. But then as the money has been switched around and we've decided how to fund the projects, they basically, this project came in at $90,000 short. To me, the solution here is fairly simple, is if you'll recall, back when we funded the $20 million originally, your motion you passed was $20,145,000. The intent at that time, the 145 was an estimate on what we thought the issuance cost was going to be. Now, frankly, I made this decision along with our finance director, because when they started to sell the bonds, we discovered that if we sold $20 million or less, not $20,145,000, couldn't go over $20 million, that we were able to sell these bonds as bank qualified bonds, which in the estimation of our financial advisor would save us about $1 million in interest over the full term payback of the bonds. I know we came to county commission and told you all about that when it happened. So basically, the schools didn't get all the money they should have at that time. They wound up actually a little bit more than $145,000, but I think we can just stick with $145 because that was your motion. If we get that money, and I don't think you have to take any action on it. I think I guess I'm just wanting to bring it before you that this is a solution to it, because you've already passed it. You approved $20,145,000. We only used $19,800,000 and some odd dollars, less the issuance cost. It was $20 million less the $158,000 and some odd dollars insurance cost. So if we have that money, then it will offset the $90,000 deficit that we were looking at, and we will be okay. We'll be ready to move forward. Now, however, you've got a decision to make on the 145. As you recall, I know Scott had even asked you, said, for us to save about $1 million, hey, let's take $145,000 out of our fund balance. At that time, I know he mentioned it, which we can still do. We can take it out of the county fund balance and pay it, or we can simply add it to the amount that you're going to borrow now. You've already approved it. That's money already approved, but If we wanted to put it in there, then that's the way we could get the actual 145 cash. Does that make any sense?
Well, and follow-up, so in order to use that 145, does it have to go back to the school board for their approval?
Dr. McGraw, in my opinion, no. I mean, this simply makes the funding request that they made legal. It gets us to fund it, and again, since you've already approved it. Now, if you hadn't approved the 145, that would be a different matter.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
This is not changing any guaranteed maximum prices or those kind of things funding on that project. This is the funding source that we were winding up short on, and we need that 145. If we get to 145, we're going to be okay.
Anyone with a question or comment for Mr. Helton? Mr. Scarlett and Miss Katie Huffaker.
But if you, what you're saying is the plan they came with, the request that they came with, has a $90,000 deficit.
Correct.
And if we vote, if we're voting on that, we're voting on that plan. We can't vote on a corrected plan because they didn't bring us a corrected plan. They've not voted on a corrected plan yet. Is that what you're saying?
No. I don't think they have to vote on a corrected plan.
But in the request that they have, doesn't it show it's still got the $90,000 deficit in it?
Correct. But once I discovered this and we met, then I said, well, hey, wait a minute, we've got $145,000 there we didn't use before. And so by using that, then I will bring it into a positive amount rather than a negative. And I guess I'm just really bringing that to you all, I guess, as much for information than anything. Because, again, you've already approved that money.
They're only not $90,000 out of the renovation side rather than the building aid.
Yeah, actually it crossed, yeah, it is. It's actually
it's out of the renovation side.
By removing the $575,000 and putting it into the building aid renovation, you made it whole.
If you're going to speak, I'm going to have to ask you to take the podium so they can hear you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The $575,000, the motion was made by the school board to take that out and calculate that in to determine how much money to request from you for Building 8. So the Building 8 renovation and restoration is made whole by that $575,000. Where the void is left is over on the high school renovation side. And we only get to a $90,000 deficit by depleting the owner's contingency and making some other adjustments to obligations within that project, leaving it still with a $90,000 deficit that needs to be made whole through some other funding, which you all have already approved.
And I'm following you on that, but the semantics of it is it's like me selling a truck for $5,000 to Miss Chrissy. And she brings me 3, and she said, you really got 5 out of it, but I'm not got the other 2. The problem with me is the plan, because this is the way you brought it. I mean, it's basically like a budget amendment or anything. What we vote on from the school board, we got to vote on it the way it's brought, not the way we want it. So if you bring it and you've promised 575, you don't have 575 to give us.
We do if you give us the 145 you already promised us.
I understand that, but what I'm asking Mr. Helton is, we've got to put the 145 in. If you don't put the 145 in, it's still this plan with a $90,000 deficit. You cannot vote on it because it's illegal.
I think that would be correct.
Yeah, correct.
All right.
Exactly.
Anyone else?
For clarity. Okay, the 145 sitting where? And
it's not sitting anywhere. I'm answering for you. Mr. Helton, why don't you answer that?
It's not sitting anywhere. You approved it.
But I mean,
okay.
is there some cash sitting? I'm a new commissioner. I don't do my finances at home. I need a lot of help. Like Dr. Morrell, I need a lot of help.
Speak to that.
So
Yeah,
the-
if you want to try, I
Okay.
can try to explain it too.
The 145,
The resolution was to borrow $20,145,000. Okay. Now, if we had borrowed that amount, we'd have that cash. But we only borrowed $19,800,000 and some odd dollars because the issuance cost was $158,000.
So we actually borrowed 20.
You borrowed 20.
Well, but we borrowed 20, but then you took the issuance cost out. The plan was, and the reason we did $20,145,000 was an estimate to cover the insurance cost, so that hopefully the school would get $20 million to spend. Okay. When we were selling the bonds, we discovered that if we sold $20 million or less, not the 145 over it, we were able to sell the bonds at a much cheaper rate because they became bank qualified bonds. So we didn't borrow $20,145,000, we just borrowed $20 million. So that 145 that you approved is out there, and it'll either have to be, that money will actually have to come out of fund balance, or we can borrow that in this new bond issue to actually get the money.
so we don't have the 145.
No, we do not. That's nowhere. It's just except approved in your resolution.
Okay, so you're recommending we take 90 out of the general fund balance to cover this?
No.
No.
Right now, the way the 575 was moved around, we're showing a $90,000 deficit that we've got to cover. The 145 will simply cover that amount.
Okay, so is it legal or not for us to vote on this with the 90,000 question?
They'd have to designate for the 145.
Yeah, I think if you designate the 145 is to be used in the high school renovation project, I think it's legal. You've already approved it.
So your letter, because of this 145, does not apply.
If you designate and allow us to use, and we've got it, I need you all to designate where that money is going to come from. Are we going to borrow it in the new bond issue, or are you going to maybe use it, take it out of fund balance, like was originally requested or suggested?
Okay, we got David Galt and then Mr. Turner.
So does this original contract project funding include the 145 or not? $25,575,000.
Did not.
Okay. Why? Because you're telling me that the original intent of the previous commission was to borrow $20,145,000 so that they would net $20 million.
Right.
And then we were going to do $5 million cash.
Right.
Well, you're showing me $25 million and then the $575 that was floating capital. So this number is showing a net of $20 million, right? Because you got $25 million.
Okay, that does, but also we gave you the report on the actual funding sources. Remember, you got $19,800,000 and some odd dollars is the actual funding that we have. We did not, the schools did not get the $20 million. They got $19,800,000 and some odd dollars.
So this number is not correct. This $25,575,000 that we've been using for funding sources, because this $90,000 is based off whether or not you got the full $20 million. I don't argue that, but your number here, your $90,000, is based off the assumption that you were getting that full $20 million, because there's the number that we're starting with. I assume all the math goes down from this top line. And if it doesn't, this is very misleading.
I don't know what you're looking at. I haven't seen that document. Oh, this is, okay. Included in the original obligations, $24,045,815, is $158,000 in issuance costs that were paid out of project funds that shouldn't have been. They should have been covered by that $145,000. The $145,000 estimate was a little short.
That didn't answer your question.
No, it didn't. You still selling 25?
I can see
the $25 million is the total funding sources. We were obligated to pay those issuance costs, and we shouldn't have.
Okay. Was this $90,000 shortfall, was it, whatever you want to call, extrapolated from the $25,575,000?
Yeah. Do you have to have the notebook that I gave you? Yeah, okay. Tab 1.
That's where I was going to go to your funding sources.
When we show uses of funding,
That's right.
the $158,198, that got subtracted from $20 million when it should have been subtracted from $20,145,000. We didn't show in the sources of funding the $145,000, but we did show the associated expenses over in uses of funds under the obligation side. So we ended up paying $158,198 in issuance costs when we didn't get all the money. If we'd gotten the other $145,000, that would have factored into that bottom line number, and instead of right now standing here talking about $90,000 deficit, we'll be talking about the fact that we only have a $50,000 contingency to get us through 10 months of construction.
Mr. Turner.
I understand, Darrell, I understand the additional $145 that we authorized to sell bonds to raise the funding, but we didn't. We didn't sell the bonds for that amount. So we've authorized it, but was it authorized only through the sale of bonds to generate that $145? So we're not saying we could take it either from fund balance or from bonds. Is it that we would be required to take it under that resolution from the sale of bonds?
I think legally you would have to do that unless you wanted to change that resolution and take the money from somewhere else. But I think as it is right now, it would have to come from bond proceeds.
And then the amount, 145, would be a positive 55,000 that we would be presumably going back into contingency.
Which would make building aid and the high school renovations
solvent and have 55,000 back into the contingency would be okay.
Yeah, and that's going to leave you about 50 or 55,000 contingency to use, which is still bare bones, but at least it gets us back into a legal document, in my opinion.
But you still have to determine where the 145 comes from, correct?
Correct. I mean, right now, it's from bond proceeds, the resolution that you passed. Which, in my opinion, then we would have to add that to the bond, whatever you vote here to sell bonds for.
Mr. Tucker or Ms. Katie, hang on.
She can go ahead.
Well, she's done spoke to this issue, so you're up.
The original document that we authorized the sale of bonds in the amount of $20,145,000. Did it authorize? Does it have to be in that bond sale? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't. If you're saying in that particular bond sale,
is that what the resolution that we passed said? We authorized.
Well, I think they always say. I think the wording is sell up to the $20,145,000. I think we put that in the language anytime is you put and you issue them up to that amount because you could issue less, but not more.
Okay. And is there any problem with it being a completely different bond issuance? Because I know right now if we went back to Mr. Gibson and said, hey, we want to issue bonds for $145,000, he'd probably tell us, okay, it's going to cost another $50,000 to issue those bonds. There's always that upfront sunk cost issuance.
Sure.
And what I'm trying to understand is, if we authorize $20,145,000 to be sold, and there was an issuance cost related to that of $145,000, but then in essence what you all did was you decided we're only going to sell 20 million, and it actually costs more than the $145,000. It cost $158,198, so it costs $13,200 more to sell less. So now are we going to have to go back when we sell this 145? Is it part of that original issuance cost, or are we going to have another sunk issuance cost for the sale of this new 145?
Well, your previous issuance cost was based upon what you sell, the 20 million. I'm assuming, and I would think if you had sold 20,145,000, it would have been slightly larger, but I don't think much, for 145,000. But I think now if you're going to add this 145 to the 2.4 that you're going to buy. Say
that again.
I'm sorry.
Tell me that part again. That if we sold 20,145,000, it would have been slightly larger than if we sold 20 million.
Well, it may have been. I know the issuance cost is based upon the total dollar amount of bonds it's sold.
I apologize because I misheard something earlier. I thought you said that to sell 20,145,000, the cost was 145.
That was the estimate that he gave us. He estimated that's what the issuance cost was going to be.
And then in reality, when we sold less than that, it cost more than that.
Right, but remember, that was an estimate that he made on the 145.
Okay. Okay. So now the question is that to sell the 145, because we're determining that we can't take it out of fund balance, we have to sell it. Is there going to be another issuance cost?
Well, I mean, you could take it out of fund balance. I think you could take action to change that resolution and take it out of fund balance would be my guess. Legally, if the commission wanted to change that, you could.
But you're
and remember, that's what Mr. Gibson, I know he suggested that when we were reporting to you why we just sold 20 million instead of 20,145,000.
And I understand I'm not trying to be antagonistic. I want to be legal.
I understand. So I think what I'm asking you to do is to tell me where to take that money from. Would be, do you want to add it to the bond issue if you decide to fund this 2.4 million, is add it to that, or do you want to change your resolution and then take that 145 out of fund balance?
Let me ask you this then. If we say that we're going to borrow 2.45, which isn't real, because that number is going to be like 8 million, I guess, but let's say that it was 8 million, and we said, okay, instead of $8 million, we're going to authorize the sale of 8,145,000.
Right.
Have we not done the same thing again, and now we've obligated ourselves for another 145,000? Because you're telling we've authorized the 145 back before, and that's how we're going to sell it this time.
But we didn't issue it before. We didn't issue the 145.
So if we authorize it this time, won't we have two authorizations for?
Well, no, we won't.
You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I think so, but see, this time we won't have to worry about not issuing the exact amount that you're going to approve. Remember, before, the only reason we didn't issue 20,145,000 was to get it to 20 million or less to get the bank qualified bonds, which saved us, as he said, probably 1/4 to 0.5% over the period of the loan. I mean, of the term of the bonds, which saved us about $1 million. So now, if you approve, we add the 145 to the 2.4, we will actually issue that exact amount of money, because it's not going to. That's not going to determine. It's not going to make a difference that it's bank qualified bonds that we're going to sell. We will sell exactly that amount and get the money that it was intended to be given to them. Does that make any sense? Because I know we wanted to give them $20 million. And I know the discussion was, well, we estimate closing is $145,000, so that's what you...
I guess what I'm saying is that the way it sounds, and I probably, our attorney even says he's not a bond attorney, so he doesn't get it. I'm not an attorney at all, and I'm not in finance.
I'm not either.
So here I am, but it sounds like that we've authorized them to have $20,145,000.
You did.
And we're about to authorize them to have what they're saying they need plus another $145,000.
Right.
And so what I'm wondering is, at the end of this project, they're down another $140,000. Then we come back and say, well, the golden goose is you did authorize that $145,000 a second time, so you can go ahead and give them that $145,000 again. Is that accurate, or am I misunderstanding something?
I think maybe I'm not communicating it to you. Remember, we didn't use the $145,000 the first time.
I know we didn't, but we're about to.
So you're not, but that won't be.
And if we do it now,
that won't be
but
the
we've
second
authorized
time.
it, will we have to authorize it twice?
Well, you authorized it, but we didn't sell it.
Right. We authorized it then, and now since we've authorized it, we're going to authorize it again and use it. Well, then won't it still be authorized?
No.
You won't have made two authorizations.
Well, you made two authorizations.
And how many times have you used it? You've used it once.
Yes.
Oh, but you authorized it twice.
We didn't use it the
Tucker,
first time.
we're running out of time here. I understand that. Mr. Turner, you got to wait your turn because Mr. Baxley is new voice in this.
Maybe reauthorization might be the right word. Would that help? So we've not funded the 145 period. Okay? If you do it this time, we're actually going to get the money. We didn't get the money before.
Mr. Baxley.
We need the money now. Does that make any sense? The funds?
You are our finance director, correct? You tell us what we need to do, and we're going to vote on it up or down. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
That's the end of conversation right there.
Mr. Turner, if no one objects, I'll allow you to speak again.
Wait a minute, we're just questioning, right?
Well, it's turning into a work session here.
Well, I'd like to cut to the chase then, because I'd like to see us move on, and because we had already authorized $20,145,000, we'd already authorized that additional $145,000 to be sold and collected through bond, that we authorize in the form of a motion that we authorize $145,000 to be included in any bond sales as we're going forward and used for the purpose of bringing us out of broke up to plus $55,000.
To authorize positive funding for these projects.
To begin positive funding so that we can move forward on additional sale of bonds to cover the costs of these two projects. So that's the motion. It's a little bit lengthy, but basically to authorize the use of what we've already appropriated through the original resolution, the $145,000, to come together with any future bond sales for the purpose of funding the Building 8 renovation project.
New question from anyone else?
That's a
Mr.
motion.
Baylor.
That's a motion.
Wait a minute.
That was my motion.
That was your motion.
I'm making a motion.
Would you repeat your motion?
That I move that we authorize the use of $145,000 in bond sales to be included in any future bond sale we may authorize to fund the renovation of Building 8 project.
You should say the renovations of the high school, because that's what the original was for the high school renovations.
Okay, that's fine.
But this will get us in a positive manner, and I promise I'm not going to get you in any legal problems.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. John McGraw seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Scarlett.
I'm still not clear on this. If you authorizing the use of $145,000 that you don't have yet, and there's no determination from any source that it's coming from at the present time, how can you sign anything on anything in the high school to pay for the high school renovation if you are in deficit now? Would we not have to have a funding source for the 145 until such time when you sell the bonds? If you don't sell the bonds and you have to spend that, you do not have it. If you don't sell the bonds now, or until which time they get them ready to sell, and you have to access that money, you do not have that money.
That's correct.
So how do you...
So that's why you all need to move on the funding, on the other funding, because I think his motion is to add it to these other bonds that you're going to
But
maybe vote on.
a minute ago, you and Mr. Fagan said that it was, we moved to 575 over here, we made building 8 whole. So now we're 90,000 plus in deficit on the high school project. That means at this point in time, based on your letter, it says it would be illegal from the auditors to approve a change order resulting in inadequate funding of the project. That means at that point you're inadequately funded. If you have a change order tomorrow, you cannot spend any money, according to what I interpret in your letter.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's why you need to move forward on what the funding is going to be on the issue of those other bonds, because then we will add that 145 to that, and then I can legally sign that change order. Is that what you're saying?
I know what you're saying, but how are you going to sign a change order until that bond sells?
Well, the $575,000 is capital projects funding. It doesn't move till you move it. The deficit will be created when you act on the board's request to move that funding.
Yeah, but it's earmarked for building 8. It can't be spent for anything else.
That's true, but there are costs for building 8 that are remaining in the high school renovation that didn't move with that money that it was intended to cover. The roofing's still there. It's got to be paid for. If you take all the building 8 funds, there's no building 8 funds left to pay for that.
What's splitting hairs?
And I agree. And he's correct on what he's saying, but frankly, I would be more comfortable, you approving this when you approve the other bond sale.
Mr. Baylor.
I'd like to ask Mr. Fagan a question.
Sure, Mr. Fagan.
Thank you.
You talk on the third option. You say that you don't know for sure on the bidding process for the work to be completed. Could you give us some kind of idea of what you think, how long it could take?
You're moving on.
What's the question?
Option 3.
Mr. Chairman, that's really not.
That's really not.
Would you mind if I answered that a little later when I come to this document here in just a few minutes? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I thought
We have a motion on the floor.
Ask for another motion.
So I'll
You get to close, sir.
Nobody else has anything. I'm just trying to move us forward, and this appears to be a way to do so, and our finance director is requesting us to consider that. That's what his job is, and we're all trying to go in the same direction, but I think if we're to funding the renovation of Building 8 and get the project complete, so anything we can do to facilitate that, that's what I'm trying to get us to move in that direction. So what we're doing is authorizing, but we're not expending. And in reference to where funds are coming from, it's stated where it's coming from is through the sale of bonds, whenever we choose to do that. So that's all we're saying here with this motion.
And we can't move forward on either of this until you take action on what you're going to, if you're going to borrow this money for Building 8.
Right.
because in the 145 funding is going to have to come from that funding as well. But if you do that, then everything's going to be fine. I mean, it'll cover both projects. That makes sense. It does.
Anyone else on discussion?
That was the
He's
close.
done closed.
That was the close.
Do you have a motion on the floor? If you vote for this motion, read the motion.
Motion from Commissioner Turner, as I have it, is to move, to add $145,000.
To authorize the use of $145,000 to come from the sale of bonds, and that sale of bonds would be included in any future sale of bonds to fund the completion of the renovation project at Jefferson County High School.
Got it. Does everyone understand the motion? We will call the roll. If you support this motion, vote yes. If you do not, vote no.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson. No. Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Galt.
No.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
No.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
No.
Gene Esslinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
No.
John Neal Scarlett.
No.
Terry Dockery.
No, dear.
Robert Tucker.
No.
Jimmy Carmichael. David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Yeses have it, 10 to 8.
It's 11.
I counted 11.
11?
I counted 11.
I had 10. Where did I miss one?
It's 11.
Yeah.
It's 11.
It is 11.
11 to 8.
It is 11 to 8.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. It is 11 to 8. This motion does pass. If there's nothing else for Mr. Helton, I think we're moving to Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Let me take this opportunity to thank each of you. I'm not sure that I did that publicly at the work session, for taking the time out of what I'm sure are very busy schedules to meet with me individually regarding the information that's in this binder. And I got to meet with everyone except for Ms. Sheets because she's incapacitated, and Mr. Tabor, and we can tell from the glow that he's had an opportunity to go somewhere a little sunnier than here. So again, thank you for taking the time to meet with me and discuss this. And as you noticed, I've added to the weight of it. There's a tab 26, provides some additional information. Obviously, I won't go through the entire notebook again tonight, but I would like to address a few of the things that are in the addition that I've provided you this evening. Apologize I couldn't get it to you sooner. I did try to email it to most of you, and hopefully you got a chance to look at it during the day. At the work session last week, there was interest expressed in having additional bidding of the Building 8 project. And in light of that, I thought it would be beneficial if I provided you some information about what options there are for that, and also how we got to the point that we're at today with our current construction manager. In the first paragraph on page 1, what I discussed there is basically how we got to the guaranteed maximum price that we have for Building 8. As we have discussed to some limited degree previously tonight, Rettenbach is our construction manager. They were tasked by the school board to obtain competitive pricing for the Building 8 renovation. And by competitive pricing, what that means is that they would go out to their existing subcontractors, ask them if they would be willing to hold the prices that they had given them for the high school renovation, and then take those prices that they received from those subcontractors, go out on the market and compare them. I don't want to put words in the school board's mouth here, but I believe the reason that that approach was taken was because that was the only way they could get back pricing information in a timely fashion so as to be able to get it before this body at this your previous work session and this meeting for your consideration. I think for some that's not competitive enough. If, in fact, it is determined by the school board that they want to move forward in a different fashion because you all desire them to do so, then they basically have three options in front of them. They could ask Rittenbach to do again what Rittenbach has done for the other projects they've done for us, and that's what the first option details. They would actually take the bid documents that were prepared by Lewis Group, break them into bid packages, advertise publicly for bids, receive those bids sealed, and then open them at a specified time and date at a public meeting. That occurred for Mount Horeb, it occurred for the Patriot Academy, and it occurred for the high school renovation. Those prices would then be tallied to come up with a guaranteed maximum price with which they would move forward with the project if approved by the school board once the contract's executed by the director. As noted in the narrative there, that has historically taken about 6 weeks. Option 2 would be for the school board to engage a new construction manager. And again, I've provided the history for the 2 times we've done that previously. I won't go into all the details, but suffice it to say that that's taken about 2 to 2.5 months to accomplish both times. And once that construction manager is on board, they would then have to go through the competitive bid process that I just described for Rittenbach, or what Rittenbach did for the high school and the Patriot Academy and Mount Horeb. So when you combine those 2 time frames together, you're talking about somewhere between 3 and 4 months to get that accomplished based on what we've done historically. The third option would be for the school board to agree to move forward, and as opposed to having a construction manager, have a general contractor. This procurement would be governed by the Financial Management Act of '81 and our county procurement regulations. To do that, you have to change your relationship with your architect. The requirements for the architect in a general contractor approach versus a construction management approach are significantly greater, both in the construction document development and the construction administration phases. So we would have to, under the procurement regulations of the county, enter into negotiations with Lewis Group, our current architect, to change their fee. I'm sure they're going to want to change their fee because we're going to increase their scope of work. And to Mr. Beeler's question, I had spoken to the architect actually just this afternoon, and I'd actually spoken to him briefly Friday, and I'd gotten confirmation this afternoon of some additional information. They would not be able to start that design development work or the construction document detail work until after the first of the year. They said it would take them probably about 4 weeks to complete that. then it would take somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks to advertise and take in bids for that work. And then you're looking at about another 3 to 4 weeks to actually evaluate the bids, secure the subcontractors, and mobilize them to work. So let's say 90 days would be a guess as to where they would be, or an estimate of where they might be. So I just wanted to provide that information. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions at this time? Ms. Hubbard.
Okay, I have a few questions. And so what I think someone in my district would say, what does it cost me? So I can either stick with Rettenbach as we currently are going, or I can go out for bid. Well, you gave us 3 options. Okay, so architect fees, can you guess on a...
We're currently at 4.5% is our current rate with Lewis Group. Based on the state schedule algorithm thingy that they use, sorry for the terminology, it'd probably be somewhere between 7 and 8%.
Which 7 or 8% of the 3.6 million?
That's correct.
Okay. To get out of the Rettenbach contract, what does it cost me?
Let's say $25,000 to $35,000 for pre-construction services that they've provided over the course of time on Building 8. And then whatever we can work out on the roofing. I can't really discuss that at this point with any sort of specificity, because I don't know exactly what we would do. I imagine we would have to try to get into some sort of assignment arrangement where Rettenbach could assign that contract to us and ABG would agree to it, and we figured out who's going to pay for what or has already paid for what, because I'm not real sure where we're at on that.
Okay, do I have to pay the subcontractors anything? Or I just have to pay Rettenbach to break the contract? Do I owe anything to the subcontractors that are associated with that Building 8 work?
The only subcontractor that we would have any issues with would be the roofing contractor.
Okay. Can I use the same materials if I get new architecture and drawings?
Yes, you could, but you've got to enter into, we would have to figure out a way to enter into an agreement directly with that subcontractor by assignment of Rettenbach's contract to us.
Okay.
Because currently it's between them.
What are the odds I can meet my insurance deadline if I switch from Rettenbach?
Assuming we've made the right assumption with regard to what work has to be done, probably 0.
Okay, so I lose how much there?
Well, you would lose the ability to collect the $800,000 if we're successful in the lawsuit.
Well, I don't know if we'll be successful or not, so.
And I would have to, what's the status of the $255,000? We lose it as well? Yeah. Okay, so the $255,000.
I might lose the $250,000. I mean, the $800,000's bonus, but I don't know if I'm going to get it or not.
Correct.
The $250,000 I might be able to achieve if we get the portion of the building that's related to the insurance.
Correct.
David Seal.
Did the contract for the roofing and HVAC stay in force after the building failure? Is that what you're saying with the roofing and HVAC?
The roofing did. The other components of the Building 8 breakout did not.
What was the amount of the roofing?
Depends on who you ask. I could refer you to tab 21 in your book, and it shows you I think 4 different prices.
The reason that number is important is the same reason the other predictions were important, is that we have a decision to make based on risk.
I understand. I understand, and I know that the difficulty of your situation, and I hope you don't feel inundated by the information I've provided. I've provided this to you in hopes that it would help you all make the most informed decision you could.
Mr. Scarlett.
Question. Based on the thing, and because this is such a small portion of a total project, if Rettenbach is serious about this and to prevent any manipulation of the numbers, would they set aside the clause that they can, after they get a guaranteed maximum price based on an open bid process, will they set aside the clause to share whatever's remaining?
I can't speak for Rettenbach. I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, it gives me the stress that they have ability to manipulate the bid, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. And I'm not sure I'm entirely comfortable with this, but I want that duly noted that it would help my indigestion with them. I'm going to make a motion to request that the school board present the commission with an amount for requests from open bid process to fix Building 8. And these bids have to be posted and completely open, and you all bring us the numbers to fix that building.
There's a motion on the floor to ask the school board to do an open bid.
To ask the school, I'm requesting this commission pass it, that the school board bring us back not pricing from Rettenbach subs, but bids to fix Building 8 right from an open bid process.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Randy Bell seconds. Mr. John McGraw.
My question is, that open bid process means general contractor?
No, sir.
No.
I'm not going to include that based on the information we're hearing tonight. And like I say, I have indigestion doing this.
So let the school board make the decision?
They can have whoever they want to run this thing for them.
You're saying basically option 1?
If that's what you all choose.
Okay.
But it's got to be an open bid process. You're telling me that if you can go and do the open bid process and still meet all the deadlines.
Based on the information that Rettenbach provided us, that we discussed at the work session about the timeline, assuming 6 weeks, which is what it took for this type of procurement in the past, adding on to now, that put us January. So they were saying if they had a December 1st start day, they could be finished, they estimated, with the assumed scope of work by April 15th, so that'd be May 15th. That still leaves us some cushion. It would seem so.
Is that something that you all think you can do?
Did he say yes?
You have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any other questions?
Dr. Edmonds, I think they have a question for you.
No, we just couldn't hear him, and I didn't know if he could go to the
Are you
podium
saying
and answer the question.
you approve that?
Dr. Edmonds, take the podium, please.
Certainly, I can't speak for the school board as to what the board would be, but in my opinion, if that's something we could achieve, and I believe it's possible, I would recommend to the school board that we do it. I want the building done, they want the building done. If we can achieve that, meet that deadline and get our money, if we win our lawsuit, Mr. Wheeler, I would recommend it. But I would have to. We got a school board meeting Thursday night.
Mr. Tim Seals, did you have a question? Mr. David Seal.
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 school system employees on county commission. I'd like to stipulate the conflict of interest statement that would please the county commission.
Thanks, sir. Mr. David Galt, then Mr. Katie Huffaker to close.
Just in logistically, because you're adding your 6 weeks and we don't meet again until middle of January, where we would take action unless it were a special call at the beginning of the month, so.
Is that something you'd be willing to entertain? That'd sure help us sell it.
For the county's interest, we better do something on it. Because we painted ourselves in that corner because we didn't read the stupid contract, insurance contract. They give us 2 years, so now we waited the last 8 months. I'm willing to be here if anybody else thinks, and that's on you.
Mr. John McGraw.
I would like to amend the motion that we have a county commission called meeting following the school board to vote on any proposal that they would bring back to us. Is that a friendly amendment?
Second amendment.
Mr. Turner seconds the motion to have a call meeting proceeding.
Mr. Chairman, let me raise a point right here. By our rules, this would have to go to the Budget Committee. Is it your desire, Dr. McGraw, to include in your motion to suspend the rules that it would go through the Budget Committee and come directly to the commission meeting when we have that special meeting?
No, we need to bring it specifically to the commission.
We can do that now, but we would have to suspend the rules. But that's what you're...
Yes.
Is that...
Yes. That it would not go through the Budget Committee, it would come back to the full body. Yes.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Does this mean that we have to have 2/3 majority?
Yeah,
Just only on what you suspended the rule to do.
If you suspend the rule part, you have to have 2/3
You have to have a 2/3 majority.
You can break them apart, but we'll see how this goes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have an amendment in a second. So we will vote on the suspension of the rules first, or you want the amendment first?
Vote on suspension of the rules.
Suspension of the rules, that's what I thought.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Galt.
Yes.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Taylor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Gene Esslinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
That's it.
The motion to suspend the rules passes 19-0. We're back to the amendment. Does everyone understand the amendment?
Clarification.
Clarification. Your motion is to go to the school board for an open bid process, which is mostly the deal 1 in your packet. And the amendment is John McGraw's amendment. Russell Turner seconded.
Voting on the amendment.
We're voting on the amendment.
Which is John.
I'm giving an explanation for that. How we got there.
You're asking about the amendment.
Right.
Just the amendment.
Just the amendment. Clarification on the amendment.
Well, I apologize. I began with the motion to give you a track how we got there. We have suspended the rules, so therefore we can do the amendment. If you're in favor of the amendment, signify by saying yes.
Just a moment. Point of order. He's asking for clarification on the amendment.
I did ask for clarification on the amendment itself, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead and read it, the amendment.
Speak your amendment again.
The amendment is...
Let's make sure we got this wording right.
Immediately.
Following, yeah. For instance, if they're Thursday night, maybe next Monday night, but we leave it up to the chair to point the date, but I can put it in the amendment next Monday night.
Well, we have to advertise.
Gives us 5 business days, doesn't it?
A week or two. That's enough time.
We'd have to advertise from Friday.
Monday counts though, right?
Yes.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday. That's your 5 days.
That's your 5 days, correct.
Exactly right.
So give me a date.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Baxley made the point over here, if we have to, we can post it on a I can't say it. Help me out.
Conspicuous.
There you go. Conspicuous place, courthouse, front door, and we can have an emergency meeting. Now, one point of clarification, are you saying, Ms. John, that this is after the bids are received to have a meeting, or if they move to do this, we don't have any action until we get the bids back?
That's correct.
According to my motion. So you're saying as soon as they get the bids back, you want a meeting? As soon as possible. If it has to do with an emergency, it could be posted with the post on online and courthouse front door. That satisfies the request of the law.
I'm going to push it.
But you're saying after we get the bids is what your amendment is?
As soon as possible after.
Okay.
Mr. Seal, does that answer your question?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
If you're for the amendment, as stated, vote yes. If not, vote no.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Goff.
Yes.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Gene Esslinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Passes 19-0. We're back to the original motion. Mr. Scarlett, your motion. Secretary's going to read it back to you and make sure the wording is correct, sir.
To request the school board to bring prices from an open bid process for a total cost of fixed building aid.
Request that the school board present the commission with an amount of request from open pricing, or from open bidding, sorry, not open pricing, open bidding to fix building 8. And that these bids must be posted and completely open.
Mr. Scarlett, are you satisfied with that wording?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a motion before you? Vote yes if you support it, vote no if you don't.
Be done by whoever they choose. I did not stipulate that whatsoever.
Sorry, you turned the chairman out.
That's okay. Call the roll.
She's got clarification.
Okay, you want a clarification or a question?
Yeah, it would be with Rittenbach.
It can be whoever the school board chooses, whatever method they choose to do. I'm not going to,
Okay.
I'm not worried about that. My point is we have to be responsible to the taxpayers. We need competitive bidding. And they can,
It falls under his option 1.
and that's, if that's what it does, yes. Whatever their,
That's certainly the most expedient way.
Okay, I'm ready, sorry.
This is option 1 for clarification.
I don't think he's specifying.
It's kind of a specifying.
I'm not specifying any option. I'm saying that's the motion. That's it.
There.
Period.
School board's choice.
School board's choice. Call the roll. Vote it. Ms. Rita.
Do we have to pay Rittenbach money to do this?
To do the bidding, it would be part of pre-construction services.
Okay.
Anyone else? We vote.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Goff.
Yes.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Gene Esslinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal,
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
19-0, motion carries.
No. Thanks for me.
Mr. Fagan, I think you can sit down.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
If you would so, please leave quietly. Moving on to E.
Oh, wow. I was going to ask if we could go back to Mr. Helton's resolution 2014-34.
Bring it from the table.
Yes, we can.
Move to bring it from the table.
You got
Would you say that again?
I move to bring it from the table.
Is there a second?
Whatever we do.
We have a motion to remove from the table,
Okay.
Tim second.
and it's seconded by Mr. Tim Seals.
You have to vote on that.
And now we have to vote on it. You are correct. Anyone opposed?
What was, did I miss the answer from the phone call?
No, we're bringing it from the table so we can discuss it.
Okay, so no, not discussing, okay.
You do not oppose, Mr. Turner?
Nope.
No one opposed? Let's do this.
I did talk to Mr. Gibson, and he said this language means that it is within 60 days of the date of this resolution, but that means 60 days prior to this resolution that we're covered. Because see, and it makes sense now, because remember I was telling him I've got to start paying money out. So now we can go back 60 days. If you pass it today, we can go back 60 days and reimburse ourselves, and then of course moving forward at any time. So that's what the 60 days was for. We can go back 60 days and reimburse ourselves.
Can we put that in there so everybody don't forget it again? Did he say?
I asked him, I said, hey, they're not understanding this, but I mean, if you read, it says, shall have occurred within 60 days, that can mean prior to it or after it. I mean, that's his explanation.
Mr. Tucker.
I've got an amendment on the floor with a second by Mr. Douglas, and I will withdraw that amendment and make the amendment to include the explanation per Mr. Gibson via Darrell Helton that the 60 days is to be 60 days prior to the passage of this resolution, and that it will encompass the entirety of the project moving forward through the project's completion. So my amendment would be that language in section 4 is changed to reflect that.
And I think by reflecting that in the minutes might clarify any question that might come up later.
If the second's there.
That sounds clear enough to me. I'll second that.
Mr. Douglas had previously seconded it, so. Read that back and make sure you got it.
Mr. Tucker's amendment reads that Section 4 will be amended to specifically state the explanation that all expenses incurred 60 days prior to tonight, the passing of this resolution, be able to be paid back, as well as any expenses after tonight through the completion of the project. Am I correct, Mr. Tucker?
Correct.
If you are for this amendment, vote yes. If you're not, vote no.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Galt.
Yes.
Randy Baxley. Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Gene Esslinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett,
Yes.
Robert Tucker,
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael,
Yes.
David Seal,
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Vote was 19-0. Amendment passes. Back to the original motion. Do they need to be a clarifying of the wording, or does everybody understand? Roll call.
Got it.
The original motion was just to accept Resolution 2014-34.
Second.
You got that? If you're for the original motion, vote yes. If not, vote no.
Original motion as amended. Yeah, it's amended.
Katie Huffaker,
Yes.
Todd Kesterson,
Yes.
Steve Douglas,
Yes.
David Galt,
Yes.
Randy Batchley,
Yes.
Rita Music,
Yes.
Donnie Tabor,
Yes.
John McGraw,
Yes.
Russell Turner,
Yes.
Tim Seals,
Yes.
Sammy Solomon,
Yes.
Robert Blevins,
Yes.
Gene Esslinger,
Yes.
Randy Bales,
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett,
Yes.
Robert Tucker,
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael,
Yes.
David Seal,
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
19.
Motion carries 19-0. Mr. Helton, does that conclude your business?
Yes, on that issue.
That issue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
On that issue.
We're ready to move on to the next one.
I'm on it too.
I thought it was being straight.
Well, technically, you're supposed to wait here for just a minute.
Mr.
Let's
Chairman,
go ahead and, I'm sorry.
I think you're on E,
We're actually on E.
going to E.
Hey, you was standing there and I thought you had something else you was wanting to throw at us.
No. Go on to it.
You have the floor.
Okay. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Judge Strand has given me permission to go ahead and speak here first on the chamber issue. First off, I do want to take this opportunity. I thought this was going to be my last meeting. We may have a special call meeting before I leave, but I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you for the opportunity I've had to serve as your financial director at Jefferson County. I made it almost 4 years. Maybe I've not enjoyed tonight too much, but I'm just kidding. But I do appreciate being able to serve Jefferson County. I think we've done a lot of good things since I've been here as financial director. I wish there's a lot of other things we could have accomplished, but when I got the opportunity to move to the chamber, I just thought that was going to be the right fit for me. I think obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done at the chamber, and I want to accept that challenge and get in there and work because I know how important this is to this county. So anyway, thank you for allowing me to serve as your financial director for these last years. Now I want to ask that you're going to be voting on a little bit later a motion to cut funding to the chamber. I obviously respectfully ask that you do not do that for several reasons. First one, I just don't think it's a good idea to change funding in the middle of the budget year. I think that should be done during the regular budget cycle, especially in this case when all nonprofits are given the opportunity to come before the full body and explain the services and explain why are we asking for the funding for their program. So I think it should be handled that way. Second, if you cut the funding, I'm concerned right now about what plan is the county going to have to lead our economic development, tourism, retail development, residential development, all the things that the chamber does. Because I think if you cut this funding, it will severely, obviously, handicap the chamber and EDOC. And so I think we need to have a plan in place to what are you going to do in their place. I know several years ago, I was involved in this when I was mayor of Jefferson City, and then, later became a member of EDOC. But if you remember when the chamber put together that strategic plan, Build a Better Future for Jefferson County, thousands or hundreds, and I think a couple of thousand Jefferson Countyans joined in trying to formulate a plan for the future of Jefferson County in a lot of areas. They formed a lot of steering committees. Those steering committees are still active in trying to see how are we progressing on these different plans and growth and just different areas. So I think before you start seriously cutting any chamber funding, we need to really think, what are you going to do in its place? Who or what is going to step up to the plate and promote Jefferson County and do a lot of the things that is going to need to be done? For instance, I think we may be close to now beginning to buy an industrial park. Well, if you're an industrial park, I think one of the purposes of that is to try to promote and get industry in here. Who's going to do that if there's not a chamber? And a chamber that has the money to staff it properly and to go out and aggressively promote and try to get industry and jobs and all that encompasses with the chamber. The chamber to me is far more important than just that. Now, again, I guess what I might say to you all, give me a chance. Once I get to the chamber January the 5th, I plan on, hopefully with the approval of my board of directors, and I'm getting ahead of the curve here, but I think I needed to because of the motion that's going to be presented here in a minute, I want to, and I've got some ideas that I'd like to come back to the commission to propose funding, different funding sources, those kind of things, come back with some ideas of changes that the chamber needs to make. But I don't think at this point in time that cutting the funding without giving me a chance to get in there and see what's going on and formulate some plans, I would respectfully ask that, don't cut it at this point in time. Now, this is a kind of a sensitive subject, the lawsuit that is ongoing. I can't really address that until that lawsuit is settled. But I do think that once that happens, I think there are some issues that needs to be discussed. Now, I'm not promising anything there, of course, but I think it's something that we'll look at. That I think the chamber need, hopefully, that I'll be proposing them for us to look at certain ways that things can be done. So, again, I just don't think it's a good idea to be cutting any funding at this point in time. Let me get in there, let me be working on some things. I think there's some serious issues that this commission needs to look at on in the future. I know as your finance director, I know that has prepared me a great deal for being the chamber, knowing what's going on with the finances of the county and what that means. So I hope I can use that experience to help better communicate with you all on these issues with the chamber and EDOC. And that's what I plan on doing when I get there in January. So please keep the funding at where it is now. And then we'll bring this up, obviously, when the budget cycle starts this year. And at that time, I'll be able to come back to you with some ideas that I have on things that might solve some of the concerns that you have.
Questions or comment? Mr. Baylor.
I'd like to ask the judge a question. Do we have obligations since the chamber and EDOC knew that they were going to get this money? Did they make any obligations now that's going to hinder them if we do stop this?
Yeah, we do. For one thing, one of the first things I was going to bring up tonight is our Christmas in Jefferson County.
if this money is stopped, there's going to be 576 kids not going to have Christmas. And there's going to be 565 families that are not going to get Christmas basket this year.
What about your bass tournament?
They'll be stopped too. I mean, this past week, on Tuesday, I got a telephone call from a bass tournament saying, we want to come. We will be on national TV. And the only two things that they had to work out was a permit from TVA on Cherokee Lake and TWRA on Douglas Lake. Get those permits worked out. We've got another tournament that's going to be coming, and that'll be on national television. We can't put it on. We can't put it on because what we have to do, we have to hire a group to market, first of all, market the tournament itself. Then we have to hire a staff for them to put that tournament on. And then we have to house them and feed them here. But of course, in housing and feeding them here, that money stays in Jefferson County. We had 12 tournaments in fiscal year 2013 and 2014. Commissioner Beeler, you asked me to give you what the cost. It was $69,000. Or no, $67,650. But what Ms. Simpson told me, we will not have a tournament unless we can have at least 100 boats. And I did some figuring. We had that average. That was 1,200 participants we'd have. And although one tournament, we had 600. That's $2.4 million that came in to the merchants in Jefferson County. We're not going to have that kind of business here in Jefferson County if its funding is stopped. We're going to have to just come to a complete stop. And we can't do any bass tournaments. We're going to have to cancel Christmas in Jefferson County. We'll have to do away with the leadership classes and so forth. I concur with Mr. Helton. Everything he said. There was a mistake made by the chamber in promoting this mega site. We need to get over it. We need to move on. And the question I ask her would have, if your lawsuit is successful, what are you going to do with it? And what if you do get the information? What are you going to do with it? It kind of reminds me when we first moved and I knew where I live right now. I had a little brown dog. And one day I was standing out in the yard and he takes off after this car. And the car stops up there in front of my neighbor. The dog just sits down in the road and looks up at it. Now what do I do with it? It seems like the sense of the lawsuit's like that. What do you do with it when you get it?
Question or comment? Mr. John McGraw.
Judge, I want to carefully word this because I have the utmost respect for you, have the utmost respect for our chamber, all the good work that they do. Do you understand, though, the citizens of our county don't know much about EDOT. We really don't. I mean, those of us that have tried to be a part of our community, do you not think that EDOT could be more open with who they are, how they spend their money, the positions they're funded? Do you not think that that would help to make at least a better public relations, if nothing else, with the citizens of our county if they did a better job in helping us understand where this valuable money that we have spent goes to.
Dr. McGraw, if you read the financial statements and so forth, it's there in the financial statements how the money is spent. I think sometimes that people are saying here as far as being completely open, as far as being transparent, when it comes to recruiting some of these industries, we cannot be. We cannot be, because of the fact that another county will steal it away, another state will steal it away. And also, too, these manufacturers or these businesses don't want it disclosed until they actually come here. Now, the other things, I agree with Darrell. I'm with Darrell. I'm for open, trying to be more receptive, more open. But a lot of it's there in the financial statements. In fact, I've been working over the Chamber's financial statements or budget for the last week. And there's nothing in that budget. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm open. In fact, quite frankly, I have been going to Donna Yates and asking her a lot of questions about, what about this item? What do we do here? And I have yet to find anything yet in the Chamber of Commerce budget, and I'm not ashamed to open it up and explain what we have. Now, EDOT, Doc, I don't know anything. Quite frankly, I don't know anything about it. I'm learning myself, okay? I really am, and I'm just be very candid with you. I am. And I may learn more Thursday when we have a board meeting, and I'll learn more. But it's been a learning process for me for the last 6 weeks about the interrelation between EDOT and the Chamber of Commerce. They're somewhat interrelated. EDOT just actually reimburses the Chamber. When Mr. Seals says we're spending all this money, well, EDOT is reimbursing the Chamber. We pay 2 of the employees of EDOT through the Chamber of Commerce. They're reimbursing us for overhead for some of the things we spend there. I think they partially reimburse us for our bookkeeping because she takes the checks. So essentially, there's not all that much money. There's about $215,000 that we're reimbursed, and it's in our financial statements. So, Mr. Seals, when you're saying we're spending all that money, no, we are being reimbursed by EDOT for a lot of our expenditures that we have in our budget. But it's real important. I got a lead tonight on the business someone gave to me. First thing in the morning, I'm going to call that person and hope we can locate a new business here in Jefferson County. And it will be one that will very well bring some, not substantial, it'll bring quite a bit of sales tax into this county. But yes, we've got, there comes a point in which EDOT and the Chamber cannot be transparent because we have to protect those businesses that are coming in here. Now, as far as what Mr. Hurley's clients want, I don't know. I don't know what the purpose of this whole lawsuit is. I guess we'll see. We'll see, and come January, when Judge Ash is going to have to rule on the issue.
Mr. Strand, I'm going to have to hold you up right there because we don't need to be talking about that lawsuit. Please, sir, let's try to close this up.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But
Can I ask a question?
You can now. You yielded the floor.
So, for the funding for EDOC and the Chamber, I know the county gives, is it $335,000? Is that what it is?
Yes, that's correct.
335. And what you referenced is EDOC, private investors contribute 215,000? Is that what, or 200?
This money comes from EDOT to, I believe it's occupational motel tax.
But
is a lot of funding.
But
we're funded primarily, the chamber is, we're funded by getting a portion of that occupational tax. We're funded by having golf tournaments, membership fees is how we're funded. And then we get reimbursed by EDOT from the standpoint out of their share of the occupational tax. We get reimbursed for paying their employees through the chamber.
I thought, aren't there private investors that contribute like $200,000 a year in addition to what I don't know. EDOT, well, my understanding is EDOT, there's a couple $100,000 that's contributed by private businesses in addition to the $335 that the county gives. So if the funding is rescinded or removed, that would be lost as well?
Very likely. That's correct. We just get behind it. Now, let me go ahead and tell you, I'm trying to not launch into this too much because I'm not an employee there yet. I'm still your finance director, so I'm trying to do that job and not try to do the other. Where's the EDOT? That's it. Do what? Where's the EDOT? But I am a member of EDOT, have been.
Here?
Ever since it was formed.
I'm a member of EDOT.
Well, you are now, Chairman of the bid. But what I'm saying is, I'm going to come back to you all in the spring after I get there and work a while. And like Dr. McGraw says, I'm going to start trying to tell you about what is EDOT, what's EDOT do. I do think there's not been good communication with you all from the chamber. That's going to be one of my goals, is to try to do that better in a lot of ways. And so, without going into it, I mean, I could make the presentation now, but we'd be here another 30 minutes doing that. What I'm saying is I'll be bringing those back to you and some ideas that I've got that maybe will help with some of the funding. But like I said, I think we need to wait until I'm officially there as an employee so that I can come back and talk to you. There's a lot of things that needs to be done.
Anybody else, question or comment?
Let me make one other comment.
You may close, sir.
We have a banquet coming up February the 6th, and we invite each and every one out to the banquet. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it. Next on the agenda, we have the Budget Committee Chairman, John Neal Scarlett.
Okay, the Budget Committee met Monday, November 10th. You have before you some budget amendments. First one we'll take is General Fund 101, Amendment 5. Y'all find that handout. There's two items on it. One is County Clerk, one is Sheriff's Department. No fund balance impact on these two budget amendments. If there's any questions, Mr. Helton's here to answer them. Does not require a second. I move it as a budget amendment, passed in a budget amendment. Budget committees, I'm sorry.
You have before you the budget amendments, General Fund 101, Amendment 5, items 1 and 2. Any discussion? Any question? This does not affect fund balance?
Does not affect fund balance.
So therefore, anyone opposed? If not, so moved.
Next one is Fund Balance Adjustment, General Fund 101, Amendment 2. And Mr. Helton, I have a question. The second, on the first line, on the first item, it says building purchase. Should that be insurance? Is that under the wrong category? Or?
I'm sorry, that's building insurance.
Building insurance.
Contents and insurance, yes. Sorry, because that is workman's comp insurance.
Okay, both of these impact fund balance. One is an overrun on the payment of workers' comp that we have to send in $38,998 more. Is that correct, Mr. Elton?
Correct.
The next one is in financial management, where the money was turned up missing, as we've got the comptroller of the Treasury Department, $144,797.95. was taken according to the comptroller, and we now have to pay them, after they audited us in December, 3 months later, we now had to pay them $8,700 more to come back and re-auditing, finding what they missed. Is that about correct, Mr. Helton?
Well, kind of.
Okay. Both of these affect fund balance. Passed in the Budget Committee, so move it.
Thank you, Mr. Scarlett. This does affect fund balance, therefore we'll need to call the roll. If you're for this budget adjustment, vote yes. If not, vote no.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
No.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Goff.
Yes.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
No.
Gene Esslinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
No.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
No.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Next, we have item C. It contains 4 amendments, and we can take these separately or together. These are the breakdown that has to be approved from where the bonuses are paid out to the county employees. And it's a pleasure of you all. We took them as a whole in the Budget Committee, and I'll move them that way. This does totally affect fund balance, and it comes from a part of money that was rolled into the fund balance. This is half. The total amount is half of what rolled in, or approximately half, a little over.
Comes as a recommendation.
Comes as a recommendation, does not require a second, and so moved.
Question or comment? If not so, call the roll. Vote yes if you do, no if you don't.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Goff.
Do our disclosure.
You should. That is correct.
Maybe.
Because I am an employee of Jefferson County, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents. Yes.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Because I'm an employee of Jefferson County, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted on. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents. Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Gene Esslinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Because I am an employee of Jefferson County, I have a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents. Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Passes 19-0.
That is all we have for the budget for the county, Mr. Helton.
Correct.
Next is the Jefferson County School Budget Amendment. The first one is General Purpose 141, Budget Amendment number 4. You have listed 9 items. 8 of them do not affect fund balance. 1 of them does. This affects the school fund balance, $12,000. Number 2, which is the equity funding for the teacher, the extra money the teachers got. Is that correct, Dr. Edmonds?
Yes, correct.
Instructional equipment, and number 4, other contracted services, which will cover infrastructure and upgrades. those things were moved between line items, do not have to be voted on, but are in this budget amendment. You will need a voice vote because the fund balance is affected, Mr. Chairman. I so move it. Passed in the
Mr.
budget.
Scarlett. Question or comment? Vote yes if you do, no if you don't.
Katie Huffaker,
Yes.
Todd Kesterson,
Yes.
Steve Douglas,
Yes.
David Goff, Randy Baxley, Rita Music,
Yes.
Donnie Tabor,
Yes.
John McGraw,
Yes.
Russell Turner,
Yes.
Tim Seals,
Yes.
Sammy Solomon,
Yes.
Robert Blevins,
Yes.
Gene Esslinger,
Yes.
Randy Bales,
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett,
Yes.
Robert Tucker,
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael,
Yes.
David Seal,
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
19-0.
19-0, passes.
Next is federal budget amendment, or Federal Purpose Fund 142, budget amendment number 4. It was passed in the Budget Committee. This is moving federal funds. I so move it, Mr. Chairman. Does not affect fund balance.
This does not affect fund balance. Question or comment? Does anyone oppose? So moved.
We've already addressed the school board's request for pertaining funding to Building 8. So I'm finished.
Thank you, Mr. Scarlett. Question or comment? Moving right along to items of information, you have in your report Chestnut Hill and Danridge Fire Department reports. Question or comment? Number 13, unfinished business. Finance Director Darrell Helton.
This is the discussion, as you recall, about whether you want to borrow the $5 million or not, instead of using the cash. I think we've discussed that a lot, and so I think it's up to you as to what decision that you want to make and what action you want to take.
Question or comment, Mr. David Go.
Whatever I need to do, I move that it's on the agenda for the special call meeting. I mean, that's when we need to take it.
In conjunction with the other borrowing. In conjunction.
We have a motion on the floor to move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Got plenty of them.
Like 6.
Pick one or play odd man out.
I guess you can just go ahead and take that vote. Most of them did.
Does anyone oppose? Just pick somebody on the front row. If no one opposed, so moved. It will be moved to the special call meeting. Number 14, new business. Jefferson County Commission regular session and schedule. It was a handout.
Make a motion we approve. Second.
We have a motion on the floor and seconded. Mr. Tucker, you have the floor for discussion.
We had discussed at the last, at the work session, and asked the director of schools if he would bring the school calendar so that we could try to make our schedule work in conjunction with their spring break and fall break. Do you have those dates?
The sheriff mentioned that today. She would be one to have it, and I send it out here tomorrow.
You got it?
Yes, I can read it.
Katie's got
I've got a picture on my phone if you can read it. You can read it.
Well, what dates does it conflict with, Katie?
John.
You do?
Spring break is March 16th to the 20th.
Mr. Cagle, could you take the podium, please? Thank you, sir.
16th through the 20th.
Yes, sir. I carry it with me. It's part of my school Bible. Spring break is March 16th through the 20th. In MLK holiday, same as the county. Christmas holidays for the school system, December 22nd through the 31st.
What about fall break?
Fall break is passed. We've already passed that.
I apologize. This is the 2015.
This is your future schedule.
Okay, we have not. I've just got through the end of this school year,
Right.
which is 2015. We've not yet set next 2015, 2016 yet. So I've got 2014 through 2015.
We're talking about over 13th, yeah. But you
Spring break of 2015 is March 16th through the 20th.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
It'll probably conflict on October on fall break.
Mr. Chairman, if it would be appropriate, I would ask first that maybe they would accept this as an amendment, just accept it. Otherwise, we can try to get a second and get this passed. But what I'd like to do, instead of accepting the entirety of our 2015 schedule, is accept our January meeting. In February, we don't have a meeting, but in January, we could accept the rest of the year because the school board, would you have your schedule by that point?
It won't be voted on,
We can always change it later.
it will probably be at least February, March.
March is when spring break will be, and for the last 4 years, your spring break has landed on our commission meeting, and for the last 4 years, fall break has also landed on a commission meeting. I guess what I'm asking is, number one, first we have to see if the people that made a motion amendment would accept this, motion second would accept this amendment, but I'm trying to line this schedule up. We're voting on our 2015 schedule. Well, you've got the schedule through the rest of the year. You've got through, okay, so the March 16 through 20 is March 2015. Okay. Well, if we could somehow change that date and then vote through, approve through May, and then in our February or March meeting, you would have the rest of it, and we could vote the rest of the year. If they would accept that by consent, then I'll leave it at that. Otherwise,
Well, let's hold up right here and let's just play what if. We got a motion on the floor in a second. You're wanting to amend that?
Yes.
So we'll have to vote on your amendment. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Rita Music seconds the amendment. The exact dates that you're wanting to move, and what are you wanting to move them to?
The Monday, March 16th, we have a regular session meeting, and that conflicts with the schools. I'm sure all that Friday, it's on the 16th through the 20th, so it's that week that they're out for spring break. So I'm sure most people leave Friday or Saturday for that. So either move that meeting to the Thursday prior or the Monday following, which would be the Monday, the March 23rd, or Thursday, the whatever day that is. Thursday the 12th, or
the 23rd.
Or Monday the 23rd.
Okay, for your amendment, you need to pick a date.
Monday the 23rd.
I won't be here on the 23rd, so.
Thursday the 12th.
That's my birthday, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
That's my birthday, I'm not going to be.
You're a lot smarter than I am. That's not saying.
So I guess the amendment would be that we would accept January and February, April and May as they stand, and we would move the Monday, March 16th meeting to Thursday, March 12th. So we'd have the work session on Monday, March 9th, and then Thursday, March 12th, we'd have the voting meeting. It's not, it's the week after us.
Is there a time?
The school board is always the week after us.
That's the work session.
5 days and non-person.
Have you got that?
Are you going to go ahead and make an amendment for October?
I can't yet because they don't have it yet.
Why not just accept
Will you-
the whole calendar? We can change it later. It's not a big deal.
Well,
It never does
it's
get
always been a
changed.
big deal.
It's always been a big deal every year.
Go ahead and accept June and July because those are budget months.
Good to go all the way up to October.
Yeah, you can accept June and July and August
That's September.
and September, yeah. We could do that.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's fine with me. So the amendment will be that we accept January, February, April, May, June, July, August, and September as stated, and March, the March 16th would become Thursday, March 12th. And then in a future meeting, we would accept October, November, and December after the school board gets us their schedule. Is that okay with you for the second?
I'm okay with it. That's fine.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tabor.
That's fine. I'll concede if that's.
You would concede your original motion?
Let's go.
Does everyone understand just what happened?
Thank you, Mr. Tabor.
Question or comment?
Call for the question.
If you support this amendment for how it is stated, exactly.
Anybody disapproves can take it by consent. I mean,
Right.
I don't think
Does anyone disapprove? If no one disapproves, it's approved by consent.
Fantastic. 4 years. That wasn't hard fault.
anything
4
worth having
years.
should happen already.
You think you're funding?
Robert's going to Disney World.
Take your trip.
Mr. Baylor.
Are we done?
At the work session, I made the statement that we had 17 paid holidays. I see now that my information was wrong. By this, we have 15, so I apologize.
No, you was right. Last year we had 17.
Was it?
15 they just voted on last week. For those years.
So they changed it.
You're
Okay.
still detailed, Bob.
All right, well, anyway,
The election affects it.
The election.
The election affects it.
okay, all right.
Question or comment? You done, Mr. Bob?
Yeah.
Moving right along to 14B. You have before you, in the folder handed out by Darrell, the commission secretary. The cost between what she's making now and what she could be making. Mr. David Seal.
I'd like to make a motion to that we move our commission secretary from part-time to full-time employment status.
We have a motion on the floor to move the secretary from part-time to full-time. We have a second by Mr. Tim Seals and Randy Bales.
Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Scarlett.
If you do this, anyway, you have to, one, name a source, and number two, it had to be go to the budget committee, or we can suspend the rule if you want to do it tonight. It has to have a source of the fund, the additional fund.
You are correct, Mr. Parliamentarian. What's the wish of the commission?
Make a motion to send it to budget.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second to send it to the budget committee. Referral. Does anyone oppose this? Therefore, so moved. Next to new business is where I brought up about the attorney privileges with the county commissioners, and I have devised a plan to handle that. I'll entertain any motions at any time, but the plan I've come up with is to field all questions through the commission office to where it can be sent straight to the attorney unless there's a special situation to where it could be handled in that manner. Mr. Turner.
That's point of order that if you're going to speak to something, you really need to surrender the chair as the chairman.
I'll be glad to do it if you want me to.
Just following our rules, you need to do that.
Mr. Jefferson, would you assume the chair?
Mr. Carmichael, you can go ahead and proceed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, what we need to do is we need to sit down tonight and decide a plan for how commissioners interact with our attorneys. And by doing so, I've devised a plan, and I'm willing to make a motion that all questions that normally be deferred to the attorneys come through the county commission office. Therefore, you would call Miss Peggy and explain to her your question, and if that question cannot be answered out of her office, it will come through the chairman and go straight to the attorney, and we will all get the same answer at the same time to the same question. That is my motion.
You have a motion on the floor. Mr. Seal?
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Is there any questions?
In that statement, I'm not clear. Are you saying that who's going to make a decision that can go to the...
What I'm trying to do, what this motion's trying to do is, it's trying to keep it to where we can notify CTASC or whomever to try to get you an answer before the county actually incurs cost.
Okay. So you're saying...
We're going to use our home office.
Is going to try to get us
the
an
office is going to do the best we can to get an answer. Then we are going to go to, if we cannot,
go to the attorney.
It will go to the attorney. And if it's a special privilege, it'll be approved by the chair, whomever the chair is, not necessarily me. But I think that would be the best way to handle it, to where we will exhaust any means necessary to get a question answered before the county actually starts spending money.
Ms. Huffaker.
Okay, I have a question. If we call and ask Peggy the question, and then it goes over to CTAS, can't we as commissioners call CTAS ourselves first without even going? I mean, they don't ask us.
You actually can call CTASC, but it kindly weighs a little more if the Secretary for Commission does, because it is quite time consuming to get answers. We've worked for the last 2 weeks on various questions, and it's not like it's an instant answer. You will spend time doing it, and therefore that is why that I felt like it would be better for the commission office to help you field that, to where she has access to information that you will instantly have access to, and it will help in the process. Therefore, frivolous questions, the attorneys, really there's nothing frivolous. That's kind of the wrong word for that. But what I'm trying to do is have a process that we go through.
Well, you're trying to share information too.
Share with everybody. If we're going to spend $60, $70 for an answer from the attorney, it's for everybody to be shared into that.
Any other questions?
I do. How are you going to share that information? Every time somebody calls the secretary, is she going to send out something, email or something?
She will send an email to notify everybody that has email, or if we have to send a business fax. If it's just an ordinary question, naturally there'll have to be a decision. If it's a date or something, you can get back with the commissioner. But if it's information that's pertinent to anything that we're conducting business on, I just felt like that everybody ought to be able to enjoy the same information at the same time, and the attorney wouldn't get asked the same question 8 times in one day. This is an information only. It's not a manipulation to try to move anything. It's not trying to alter anything. It's trying to share information with everybody at the same time.
I've got a question, but I don't know if I can ask you. I guess my question is, are we truly going to save any money by putting more workload on Peggy, our secretary, versus, I understand the need for sharing information, but if the purpose of this is to save money, are we truly going to save money? Go ahead, Mr. Baylor.
Maybe we could, I think, if we could get a hold of CTAS ourselves, and if they refer us to our attorney, which they have done me in the past, they say, well, you need to get a hold of the attorney. Then I think that's when we need to go to the office. But if I can get a hold of CTAS and they give me an answer, I shouldn't have to go to the county commission.
Mr. McGraw.
My only comment to that, Mr. Baylor, is if you have a question and you call CTAS, I probably have the same question, and I'd appreciate you sharing that information with me because I'm learning like everyone else is. So if there's any way that we can at least, and I think Mr. Carmichael's got a real point. If the county commission secretary calls CTAS, then that's coming forth from the commission instead of just an individual. It doesn't mean that you can't do it, but the process would be a lot better for the rest of us in the commission if we can do it, because we've got 20 pretty smart people in this box, and if you've got a question, and I probably would have a similar question, and I need to know the answer too. And I'd appreciate you sharing that question so that I can get the answer.
Commissioner Turner.
I just looked through all of our rules of procedure, and I can't find anything in there that said we were ever restricted in the first place. So if we're looking at making a rule, are we not talking about changing our rules of procedure? And if we are, then that would take supermajority, 2/3 to do that. But my real problem with this is that I feel like it's a little too restrictive. I don't feel comfortable with being told that we individually shouldn't call CTAS. I may want to call CTAS for something that's more information gathering, and I don't want to obligate Peggy's time to do that. So I mean, I don't want to be pigeonholed on what I can do, because we have the authority as commissioners. We're all equal. We have the authority to make calls on our own. We have the authority to talk to an attorney, our attorney. I don't feel like I really don't feel comfortable at all saying that I shouldn't call the attorney with a question. When we were talking about this last week at the work session, we were talking about procedurally try to be conscious about what you're doing, but share the information after the fact. I didn't agree last week that something restrictive like this would be what I'd be interested in. I think that also need to be in our rules. If we're going to operate like that, it need to be in our rules of procedure, which it's not.
Commissioner Carmichael.
Me, am I next?
Go ahead, Mr. Baxley.
I call for the question.
I get to close.
Man,
I object, I've got a question.
About 10 minutes.
I object, I've got a question. The look of it, when we talked about it last week, was twofold.
Vote on that?
You do?
You have to vote on that, Mr. Chairman. There's an objection.
Okay.
You're voting on the objection to the question, call for the question.
Call for the question has been called. Are you for or against? You want to call the roll? Or?
You voted on the objection.
You're voting on, if you vote yes, you're voting to close the discussion. If you vote no, you're going to vote not to close the discussion at this point in time.
Katie Huffaker.
No.
Todd Kesterson.
No.
Steve Douglas.
No.
David Goff.
No.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
No.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
No.
Gene Esslinger,
No.
Randy Bales,
No.
John Nell Starlet,
No.
Terry Dockery, Robert Tucker,
No.
Jimmy Carmichael,
No.
David Seal,
No.
Bob Beeler.
No.
Looks like no's have it.
So the question that I have is, in the discussion of it, it looks like it's twofold. One is, the first part's to share information. And that seems like it would be so simple, just to share information, just to tell the attorneys, hey, anytime a commissioner asks you a question, please email the answer to all, the answer with the question to all attorneys. That way you're not tying up Peggy's time, and we can still deal with the attorneys. The second part of it, though, is the money we spend and whether we're able, as a single commissioner, to obligate money. If I call the attorney, I'm spending money, and I did not get approval of the body. I know as a body, we can vote to spend money or not to spend money. And I think that's one of the interesting points of this. So the share information, to me, that's procedural, and just tell the attorneys, instruct them, hey, somebody asks a question, email the question and your response to all commissioners, and it's done. But I think we also need to address the spend. So that's my comment to your motion, Mr. Carmichael.
Mr. Carmichael, you want to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The intent of this discussion is not to alter the way we do business. It's not to change anything. There's never been a standard for county commissions with its relationship with information. Some people enjoy it, some people don't. The intent of this motion is to make an even playing field for every question answered, to where everybody gets the same answer at the same time. Yes, we incur cost. Sometimes it costs a lot of money to do things. Sometimes it costs $20. The intent's not to alter anything, and it's not to harbor anything or tell anybody they can't call C-Task. The intent is that when you do get a question answered, if one of your brother or sister commissioners is thinking the exact same thing, fixing to call up Doug Grennan and say, oh, Doug, got a question for you, and he's like, my God, I done answered that 9 times today. Wouldn't it have been a lot simpler to have a system in place to say, hey, question been asked? We're not telling you can't do it. We're just telling you that when you enjoy an answer, share it with everybody else so they're not asking the same question. I rest my case.
Let's vote.
Sure what I'm voting on.
Yes, it's for the resolution. Or the procedure. I don't assume that is a resolution.
Technically, it's not a resolution.
Procedure.
It's just a procedure.
Clarification, tell us what we're voting for again.
The procedure is to go through the secretary if you have any questions for CTAS or the attorney, and that way they will get the answer and email it to all commissioners.
If it's a procedure, point of order, if it's a procedure, we're talking about altering our rules of procedure then.
No, because you're not altering it, because there's no procedure there.
No, just a second. This is what we follow. These are our rules of procedure. I'm just trying to make it clear. If you don't put it in our rules of procedure, do we have to follow it? We have to follow this.
We're supposed to follow that, yes. Make that very clear. We're supposed to follow that. However, if Mr. Carmichael is making this as a chair request, and this board, the majority agrees on it, he can do it that way, and it does not have to go into the rules.
That was my point of order to start with when you asked me to render the chair, was that this could have just been something simply to talk about and everybody agree on it. It didn't have to be in the form of a resolution or anything to do with procedure. It could be handled in a different situation here.
A gentleman's contract.
A gentleman's contract, that's all it is.
You got a question?
It's not saying you got to adhere. Yes, ma'am.
For clarity, it's just a kind request.
Sure.
That if we have a question that's going to CTASC, we let you know first, hopefully to get a quicker response. But we also have the option to go straight to them.
Sure.
Okay.
It's not telling you you can't.
It's just a request. Okay, it's not.
There's no penalty. What this is you have a procedure that does not touch this item. It does not touch it. When you incur cost, you cannot incur cost as one county commissioner. You got to incur cost as 21, or ever how many.
Hey guys, let's take action. Let me ask the parliamentarian, does this item require action?
If it is a chairman's request, it does not require a vote.
That was my intent to start with. It was a chairman's request.
Okay, it does not require a vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
If it's to put in the rules of procedure, it does.
Okay. And that's what you're requesting? It's just a gentleman's agreement?
Gentleman's agreement.
Okay.
And lady.
Yeah. Brothers and sisters.
All right, let's move on. Chairman, you want your chair?
Now we're down to 14D on new business. We have Mr. Russell Turner.
Okay.
Point of order.
Sir.
I'm trying to look at our rules. Is it not in our rules a procedure that at 10:30 after 4 hours we can't hold a meeting, that the meeting needs to be closed?
Sir, you are correct.
It is in the rules.
It is in the rules.
Adjourn this meeting.
Second.
It's in the rules and procedures. If we're going to follow by it, let's follow by it. Y'all sat here and talked too much, and we could have been out of this meeting a long time ago.
Just for clarification, Mr. Chair,
you got a motion and a
It's
second.
a motion to adjourn is undebatable and undebatable, Mr.
There you
Chairman. To
go.
answer your question, you have to vote on it one way or the other. There is no
I just
discussion.
wanted clarification. What he said is not hardly right.
Excuse me?
The rule says if it hadn't been changed.
You could suspend the rules, but he didn't do that.
No.
He made a motion to adjourn. He could suspend the rules at any time with a 2/3 majority. Once he makes the motion to adjourn, you've got to discuss. It's a high privilege motion.
All I'm saying is the time.
It doesn't matter about the time. He didn't make a motion on the time. He made a motion to adjourn. You have no standing for discussion.
That is correct.
But at 10:30, after 4 hours, you're supposed to cancel the meeting.
It is, but you didn't make that motion about the rule. You made a motion to adjourn.
Well, I make a motion for the rules. I rescind my motion that we go by the rules and procedures.
Now,
we've been here too long, and we have discussed this stuff. That's what we have a work session for, and there's no need to sit here and discussing all this stuff. When we come here on a vote meeting, we need to come here and vote and move on.
Amen.
We do not need to sit here and bicker and gripe back and forth. I mean, it's 10:30 at night.
Now can I say?
You're free now. He's lifted that motion.
He's lifted that motion. You can speak.
Say something that we clear it up in case something else happens. It doesn't say you stop at 10:30. It says that you cannot address another subject after 10:30. In other words, if we're discussing something, you can't stop.
So after they get done voting on this thing Carmichael brought up, you can't discuss it.
That's right.
They're not.
It's not going to be a vote.
Chairman's request.
It's the chairman's request.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman,
Did he rescind his motion to adjourn?
he rescinded his motion to adjourn.
But I want to
Okay, we're not done then. We're not done.
I've got my, we're moving on.
Mr. Turner, you have the floor.
All right,
He
here we go.
rescinded
All right,
his
so
motion.
I'm making a motion.
Another motion, though.
No, voting's over.
He's invoked a rule that says at 10:30 you can't address a new subject. So to move on, you have to suspend the rule.
All right.
Or you have to do something with what's else on the agenda.
We got two things. I moved.
You've actually got a new subject. So we can't start a new subject past 10:30?
I'm moving to suspend the rules.
You're moving to suspend the rules, okay.
These last two things, we can get these out of the way. These are just simple things. I'll be done in less than 30 seconds.
You got to vote before you get your 30 seconds.
Okay, we're going to vote. All in favor of suspending the rules? You do realize you need 14 votes. All opposed suspending the rules, raise your hand.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
Four. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All four suspending the rules. We got 11.
It fails.
It fails.
11 votes. You didn't have 14. It failed.
You didn't have 14.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. What are you going to do with these two on, or will they go to the next meeting, or what will
They will have to be forwarded to the January meeting because they cannot be heard in a special call meeting.
Unless you put them on.